I'd like to call this meeting of the Woonsocket City Council to order for Monday, July 11th, 2022. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoia?
Here.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Here.
Councilman Gillette?
Here.
Councilwoman Sierra?
Here.
Councilman Susie?
Here.
Councilman Ward?
Here.
President Gendron.
Here. If you could please stand for the prayer and the pledge.
God our Father, we ask that you send your blessing upon this city and upon this council. Guide us in our efforts, increase our motivation, and strengthen our resolve to build a better community and ensure a brighter future for the city of Woonsocket. This we ask in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We begin this evening with 4 public hearings, Madam Clerk.
22 LC 24, public hearing on application of first-class victualling license by Mom's Home Cooking at 6 Florida Street.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak for or against this application? Is there anyone that would like to speak for or against this application? Hearing none, next item, Madam Clerk.
22 LC 25, public hearing on transfer application of automobile junkyard license from Interstate Towing and Auto Parts Metal Recycling to 855 River Street LLC at 855 River Street.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak for or against this application? Hearing none, move on to the next item, Madam Clerk.
22 LC 26, public hearing on application of secondhand dealers merchandise license by Levitt Legit Sneakerheads at 6 Winthrop Street.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak for or against this application? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Public hearing to ratify tentative agreements between the New England Police Benevolent Association Local 808 and the City of Woonsocket.
This item will be continued to a meeting to be held on July 25th, and so this public hearing will be continued to that date. If I could have a motion to continue this.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Sierra and Councilman Gillette to continue this public hearing until the July 25th City Council meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the public hearing will be continued on July 25th. Moving on.
I make a motion to move up on the agenda communications from the mayor, 22M04 and 22M05.
Oh, we got to close the public hearing. I'm sorry. If we could have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilwoman Sierra, seconded by Councilman Susie to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the public hearing is closed. Councilman Canoia.
I make a motion to move up on the agenda communications from the mayor, 22M04 and 22M05.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Gillette and Councilwoman Sierra to move up on the agenda 22M04, 22M05. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22M04 is before us, Madam Clerk.
A communication from mayor submitting veto message on ordinance 22021 pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 9 of the Woonsocket Home Rule Charter.
Motion to receive for discussion.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments?
Council President,
Councilman Canoia.
this is a message of disapproval from the mayor in connection with the budget amendments that were passed unanimously by the city council, notwithstanding that it says Canoia budget on page 2, but put that aside. I will not support the veto. I understand the mayor's concerns, but I would just highlight a few things, if you don't mind. Number one, the total increase in the levy that we put through in total was not 508,573. It was actually 489,411. The balance is made up of a requirement of a pilot agreement with an entity that asked for one. So the actual levy increased $489,411, not $508,573. More importantly, the amendments that the City Council put through, and I'll just run through them. We increased the contingency by $216,000. We went from $1,350,000 that was proposed by the mayor and increased it to $1,566,000 and change. And the reason for that is we have, as we all know here, a number of open collective bargaining contracts in addition to other exposures that we can talk about. But we have a police contract that's 2 years past due. We have a fire contract that expired in June. We have 670 contract that has a wage reopener. We have 3851 that's going to be before us tonight. So we have four contracts at least that are going to require additional spending. So that's what the contingency increase is for. Second thing we did was we increased the school appropriation by $150,000. We haven't increased the appropriation to the school department since 2019. Actually, since 2020, I should say. So it's $150,000. The third item we did was senior services. For whatever reason, this happens almost every year, but there was a reduction. So we brought back the senior services back to the $160,000 that we've given them the last couple years. And it's not earmarked for anything specific. It's earmarked for aging well so that they can spend it as they see fit. So we just restored what we had gave them last year. And yes, we've also provided potential funding through CDBG for some of their programs, but that's a separate area. The other thing we did is we provided salary increases. The budget proposed by the mayor had some salary increases, but there was no salary increase in the budget. This is the budget presented by the mayor. There was no increase for the mayor's secretary, the city clerk, the manager board of canvassers, the solicitor, the solicitor's executive secretary, the legal assistant. No increase for the police chief, no increase for the deputy police chief, no increase for the fire chief, no increase for the executive assistant for public works, no increase for human services, and a few others. So we provided everybody with a 3.5% increase across the board in this current environment. I think that's not unreasonable. So that was $45,000. We put in election services of $40,000. We have an election this year that's not in there. We added $30,000 to the library for books and for supplies. It's $30,000. And then the rest is a net decrease of $62,000. You add all that up, it's $508,000. And I know the mayor has made some suggestions about the plow trucks, using opera for that. However, we effectively are. The highway department, the net increase to the highway department was just $25,000. We put in the plow trucks because that's what was agreed to when we agreed to order the trucks. So we put that in, and the $200,000 for road reconstruction and the $100,000 that was in there for lease purchase remained. The other piece went to road. Basically, it's covered in opera. So no offense, but it's a red herring. The plow truck stuff was covered effectively through opera because that's where we have road reconstruction. And again, the net increase, the net impact of that adjustment was just $25,000. At the end of the day, we increased the levy above and beyond last year's levy in total, including what the mayor had. She had a modest increase. It's 0.9%, less than 1%. The levy went up less than 1%. The impact, we increased the rate from $13.80 that the mayor proposed for residential to $13.98, and for residential. For commercial, it was $25.75 and went to $25.94. So 18 cents and 19 cents. So on a single-family home, the median residential property was assessed at $275,700, and if you have a homestead, it's going to be the impact for a single-family residential. The impact that the increase from the council is going to give is $37.22 for the entire year. That's 72 cents a week. And if you have a $400,000 home, it's just about $1 a week if you have a homestead. And yes, every penny counts. I get that. But I think it's a modest increase to ensure that we have adequate funding for our schools, public safety, senior services, the salary increases that we talked about, the library. And again, the mayor has suggested that we could use ARPA funds, and we will use ARPA funds. We have $36 million earmarked for ARPA funds. I'm sorry, we have $36 million that we're going to receive, roughly, that we're scheduled to receive on ARPA funds. We've already earmarked approximately $14 million back in November for various projects, taking down the old water treatment plant, road reconstruction, sidewalks, et cetera. So that's $14 million. We passed a resolution. We've passed two resolutions recently at the request of the administration. One is 22R28, requesting $16 million from the state to help match fund for a potential public safety complex. And so we'll use $16 million of ARPA funds for that. So now you've just consumed $30 million. The balance, there's lots of projects. You know, you recall Director D'Agostino originally said he could use the whole $36 million and then some. He didn't get all of it, but there's lots of projects. We have bridges. We have a water situation over in Union Village that we may have to deal with at significant cost. There's a number of areas that still have to be addressed and vetted out. Taking these modest increases, you know, look, at the end of the day, the proposed budget from the mayor's office had total spending, school and municipal, et cetera, of $155,352,000. The council's amended budget was $155,860. Is a 0.3% change. So this is literally 99.7% of what the mayor asked for. It's a modest increase. We have had every year for the last, since I got on this council, anyways, we've reduced the levy every year for the last 5 years. This is the first year we've had a modest increase, and we're going up 1.1% in total. And one of the reasons, and I don't even like talking about this in a public forum, but unfortunately, I feel, you know, we have to at this point. Again, we're asking the state for $16 million to help fund, a potential public safety complex, and this was at the request of the administration. We have another resolution that this council passed at the request of the administration, requesting the state to provide us up to $150 million for our schools. I'll be very honest with you. Strategically, politically, and otherwise, it's awfully difficult when the city of Woonsocket reduces its levy every year for five years in a row, and then asks for $150 million for schools and $16 million for public safety from the state, and we're not reflecting any kind of an increase in our tax levy. And I can go back to the tapes when certain people suggested that was the problem back in 2008, 9, and 10, when in fact we had increased our levy and people were confused. But nonetheless, it's incongruent to be asking for all this money while at the same time not having a little bit of skin in the game. It's a very modest increase. The total, as I said, the total impact, incremental impact on the tax levy is modest. Again, I get that every dollar counts. But the reality is, we don't want to set up a budget that has basically a structural deficit. There's things that we have to spend every year: plow trucks, police cars, et cetera, books in the library, hopefully, that we should have every year. And you start taking it out and using one-time fixes, that's where you end up having, from my perspective, and reasonable people could disagree on that, but that's how you get structural deficits, and that's how you run into problems. And then in addition to that, and we'll talk about it more later, I'm sure, we have significant exposure to a number of tax cases that are still out there pending. So, there's some money out there in terms of ARPA, but trust me, there's lots of calls on it and there's lots of needs. So I will not support the mayor's veto, and I will support the budget, the budget that was amended by the unanimous vote of the council, and I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Council President?
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
So this was a toughie for me because I agree with some of the adjustments that we've made, like the schools, the all across 3.5% raise. But at the same time, I was struggling with just even adding a little drop to the people that are feeling the increase all around. Everywhere you turn around, it's usually that 1.1% wouldn't make that much of a difference, but you have families that are feeling it, from groceries to oil to just about everything else. So when you pile that, it could be like the straw that breaks the camel's straw, and the camel's back. So you know, I was struggling, and I was going back and forth. I've come to the determination that I will not be supporting the veto, and it's because of, from what I have understand, is we would regress to the old budget, and there's not possibilities of adjusting that budget. Once it, am I correct in that? Mm-hmm. That if we don't, if we veto, it just automatically goes, and those adjustments that we have made would not make it to the budget. And solicitor, is that I don't know if you're the person to ask, but if that is correct, that is the one, that is the thing that it would keep me standing against the veto.
The mayor vetoed the budget. If you agree with the veto, then you'll go back to the budget that she put in without the amendments that the council made.
And
So it's all or nothing.
One or the other, yeah.
yeah, and there's no room for amendments.
No.
Then?
I'd like to speak to that before your vote is taken, because as we know, solicitor, that's not the case. You can snark all you want, Councilman Canoyer, but I think the solicitor is familiar with budgets from his position he had in the past, and I would like to speak to this, Councilman Gendron, before you take the vote.
Sure. I just want to point out that your veto was specifically of the budget that we passed, and you disapproved of 22-021. For the above stated reason, I hereby disapprove of 22-021, which is the budget that we passed as amended. So your disapproval brings us back to what you originally submitted.
So when the councilors are finished speaking, I will speak to that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilwoman, you have the floor.
Oh, I wanted to hear from, the solicitor and have, clarity, because if it reverts back to the old budget as it is, then I would support the new budget. But my one thing that I think it's important for us to just highlight is that even if the new budget passes, we're not taking out of consideration the people that are struggling, and how that 1% that doesn't seem like much can actually affect a very a specific group. So I wanted to get some answers on that so that I can make a more informed decision.
All set?
Yeah.
Any other comments? Well, I will just say, I, for one, have some of your same concerns. It's always difficult to increase a burden that is already a problem for some people. I do take pleasure in the fact that Councilman Canoia pointed out for the last 5 years, and it actually goes beyond that, when I was still on the council, that we repeatedly were able to, with a very wise amendments, were able to, going beyond 5 years, able to reduce the mayor's proposed budget to the point that we were always bringing down the tax rate, or at least the levy, as it impacted the most vulnerable and all taxpayers in the city. That being said, I think that the realization that we have before us is that the problems that we're experiencing now as individuals with automobile fuel, heating fuel, food costs, just all of the other ancillary purchases that we make are all factors that impact the individual, but they impact the city as well. And when we see Director D'Agostino just a few weeks ago brought a bill to a contract to us for purchase of salt, and he identified then how much the cost of salt had increased. And those are not things that I believe are going to increase just for this year. And unfortunately, if we don't act prudently, to me, I've always believed one-time fixes are problems in any budget. And when you see the state or the federal government use one-time fixes, down the road, possibly when we're all gone, those are problems that rear their ugly head for future administrations and future councils. So I was actually somewhat relieved because I knew that the original proposed budget was unrealistic. There were many items that were not included and captured in that. I also felt like it was an unfair budget in that some people were getting exorbitant raises and others were getting nothing. So I was very uncomfortable with that, and I had to come to grips with the fact that we need to demonstrate fairness for the employees who are working sometimes in less than ideal conditions, for the taxpayer who is struggling personally on their own. You can smirk, Mayor.
No, you
No, you can.
It's
It's all right. It's all right, Mayor.
You made
It's
me
all
think
right.
of something. Thank you.
So, but we have to include and encounter what everyone else is encountering as a whole. And it's not fair to see some people benefiting greatly and others getting nothing, and the taxpayers struggling. So I had some of the same concerns as you, Councilwoman, and I was torn with taking care of the taxpayer as best as I can, trying to take care of the employees in City Hall and outside of City Hall, but the city employees that are all work very hard. Fortunately, we've got, we're close to a contract agreement with the police because they're deserving of what they are going to be receiving. And with that, you look at how we can do this and not cripple. Listen, none of the 7 of us know if we're going to be here next year. We have individuals that are sitting in the audience that could be replacing some of us. And I would not care to put an unfair burden on them to pass an irresponsible and unrealistic budget this year based on a candy store gift from the federal government. And then next year, that council that sits here, be it us or other individuals, have to then try and negotiate and navigate to maintain what this city needs. There's no denying the fact that this council has repeatedly passed responsible budgets that lowered the tax levy. And with this modest, although still an increase, but with this modest increase, we are still not even close to what the mayor had proposed in a budget just 2 years ago. So we've been acting very responsibly, and I'm comfortable with the uncomfortableness of nobody really wins here, but everybody gets a little. And we're taking care of our employees. We're providing salt for this winter. We're providing lights for the streets. We're doing the necessary benefits, if you will, for the city in taking care of our police. And hopefully we're going to come to some realization with the fire. And we've got 3851 on tonight. Those are all things that we need to move forward in the right direction. And I think that this does it. And so for that reason, with that reasoning, I will not be supporting the veto, and I will be voting to override the mayor's veto of this ordinance. Are there any other comments from the council? Hearing none. Mayor?
Okay, thank you. So I would just like to not only address you, but I'd like to address the public on this. I think I indicated that, and I'm not going to speak to every point in the amendment that you folks voted on. First, I will tell you that it was vetoed as 22021 because it was put forward as one piece of legislation. It was not put forward as individual line items. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I just want to make sure that it is very clear and the public is very much aware that this change is costing the taxpayers nearly $500,000. I don't care how you divide it up. I don't care who is paying it. You are paying $500,000 more with this budget that came forward. I also said, in the spirit of collaboration, that although I don't agree with the spreadsheet, everything on the spreadsheet that Councilman Canoia put forward, I did state, and I'm not going to talk to every point, but I do not want people to think that some of the comments that Council President Gendron made about unfair raises and things like that, some of them came forward without raises because they received raises the year before and certain employees did not receive them this year. So it was more or less a balancing act. So there's more than one side to the comments that you've been hearing coming from the dais. So, but without getting into the detail of everything, the fact of the matter is that I indicated, and the solicitor can opine, just like the council has made and passed legislation that was in arrears, giving people raises in arrears. You've all done it as counselors. You've gone back. In fact, we have a raise that's in here that is not legal until a board voted on it. The board voted on it after July 1st, so it's in arrears. So the point I was making was, we can keep all the adjustments that were in this amendment that you passed and not increase the tax rate. So you can keep every change, and like I indicated, I may not agree with all of them, but you can keep them all. But we have more than 489,411 items and purchases and expenditures that we can cover with ARPA. This is not a Band-Aid approach. We lived through Band-Aid approaches before where we knew that we were not going to have money in the future. The difference with this is, and trust me, and I want you to know, your roads will always be salted, your roads will always be plowed. talking about Director D'Agostino as if he's the person that's looking for all your money is not the case. So do we have a lot of work to do? We do. But this is a responsible budget, and I do state that I would not oppose these changes. What I don't agree with, and Councilman Gillette has said it over and over again, he's the watchdog for the taxpayers. So why do we want to collect nearly $500,000 more from our taxpayers when we can use ARPA funds? The ARPA funds were given to us specifically to use in budgets. Communities across the state are doing it. We can do it. And if that means next year we need to increase the tax rate by 18 cents, then we increase it next year by 18 cents. But why do we need to do that to the taxpayers this year when we have a means to pay for some of the items in our budget through ARPA? We didn't intentionally not fund an election. I think we all know we have an election, but we also know that this election this year, unless there's something bizarre that happens, we do not have an election next year. We can use ARPA funds for the election. We can use ARPA funds to purchase the trucks. This administration started with councils before some of you even sat there, purchasing equipment for police, fire, and highway in a cyclical fashion, so we're not subjected to depleted trucks and engines and rescues in the future. And I think it's a matter of compromise where we say we can do all of these things. We can accomplish every single thing you voted on, and we do not have to raise that tax rate. And if we have to raise it next year, then we raise it next year. But why raise it this year when we don't have to raise it this year? That is the point I was making, and I just don't want people to think that some of the comments that were made were if you don't increase the tax rate, people are not going to get raises, we're not going to have an election, there aren't going to be books at the library. We can use $100,000 of ARPA funds for books at the library. But the point is, we can use ARPA funds to purchase books. We can use ARPA funds this year. We can use ARPA funds next year. We can double up next year. So we can utilize the ARPA funds that are coming into this city just like other municipalities are. And it's not a matter of their budget versus our budget. It's a matter of let's do what's right. If you think that this is right, I'll agree with that. And if you override it, I have to agree with it anyway. But the point is you do not have to raise the tax rate. So we can accomplish this. We can make these changes. We can adjust the budget, and we can keep the rate at $13.80. And I think we know, and we're talking about residential, but this is also for the commercial taxpayer. We understand that the commercial taxpayers have had it tough. They're small business owners, they've struggled, and raising it from $25.75 to $25.94 may seem like just a small amount when you're looking at those numbers, but that's for every $1,000 worth of value. And for every $1,000 worth of value, the taxpayer will be paying more. This is not a Band-Aid approach. This is not like the past. This is a different situation, and it's increasing taxes, increasing the tax rate in a year that we don't need to do it. We don't need to do it. So I ask you to please think about your vote before you take it tonight. Let's make the changes that were put forward in the spreadsheet that you were given. Let's keep these changes in effect, and let's keep the rate where they were with the what was presented by the administration. We can accomplish both. Counselors talk all the time about working together as a team, but there's a division that's going straight down this room again with this particular document. So I ask you, on behalf of the taxpayers, to please give the changes that were presented in your ordinance, but also keep the tax rates where they were in order to give that little bit of relief to the taxpayers, and we can address any changes next year while we still have ARPA funds, and we don't need to make this increase this year. Thank you.
Council President,
Councilman Canoia.
Briefly for the second time. So, just to be very clear, city charter, the mayor shall, within 10 days after such report, meaning the budget, certify to the clerk their approval or disapproval of each such changed item. Each changed item. Such changed items as are approved by the mayor shall thereupon take effect. If the mayor disapproves of any changed item, he shall include it in the message, blah, blah, blah. So it's each item. That's number one. Number two, there wasn't one. They're each. They're every line item. You can pick and choose. And in fact, as is the mayor's usual history, we've been through this all before. It's all great fun, and we all dust ourselves off at the end of it and move on. But fiscal year 21, last year, mayor's veto. Almost identical spreadsheet. You know what she did? She vetoed 2 items. Okay? I hereby respectfully request the council to consider the vote separately on the 2 different council amendments. Okay? 2 items. Fiscal year 18, veto. I certify my partial approval of the changes to the administration's proposed budget, accepting the following items for which I specifically disapprove. And she listed 6 items that were on the spreadsheet. This year, didn't do that, vetoed the whole thing. Sorry. That's number one. Number two, you know, on this page 2 here, there's a reference to the quote Canoia budget. I thought it was the council's budget, but it's a Canoia budget, I guess. But it says, under the quote Canoia budget, cruisers purchased, $233,000. Computers for fire, $5,000. We didn't touch that. That's in the mayor's budget. We didn't make any amendments to that. So, look, I get, we'll sit here all night and talk about it, but at the end of the day, the city council unanimously passed the budget. And again, I'm just going to speak for myself, but when I came on the budget, when I got on this council 5 years ago, the tax levy was $62.9 million. Last year it was $54.1 million, down almost $9 million. Okay? I'll take a second seat to no one in terms of pushing for relief for the taxpayers. I get it. I understand. Everybody up here has worked hard, the administration as well. I've always said that, although I don't send out press releases taking all the credit. But it's been collective. But this council has pushed the levy down every year, year after year after year. We're now at a point where, as I said, we have a number of open items, and with all due respect to the mayor, I respect her opinion on this, I just disagree. I don't think we should be taking ARPA funds to supplement and quote, fix an operating budget. You know, every year we're going to have these vehicles. Every year we're going to have this type of stuff. It's going to be in the operating budget. There's a lot of stuff we're going to spend money on. And again, we'll get to it. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we also have a lot of risk. This budget assumes a collection rate of 98.4%. And if you've been paying attention, the last several meetings, month after month, week after week, what's been coming before us out of the finance department? Abatements that are finally catching up to us, and there's a bunch more. There's one on the docket tonight that if we lose, and honestly I don't see how we win it, it's going to be over $1 million. So there's still a lot percolating. I make a motion to move the question.
Motion made by Councilman Canoia,
Second.
I'm sorry.
seconded by Councilwoman
To move the question.
Sierra. To move the question. So can I have a very detailed,
I make a motion to pass the budget as amended, notwithstanding the mayor's letter of disapproval dated June 29th, 2022.
so Solicitor,
Yeah.
can you direct the council? A yes vote means,
A yes vote means you approve the,
The amended budget.
I did want to.
sorry about that.
go ahead.
So you're voting on a motion to approve the ordinance notwithstanding the disapproval of the mayor. So a yes vote would be for your amendment, and it would be against the disapproval.
So yes means we sustain the ordinance. No means you sustain the veto.
Yes, because the actual motion should be, shall approve the ordinance notwithstanding the disapproval of the mayor. That's the wording of the motion, which is right out of the charter.
Okay,
Council
do you have that,
President,
Madam Clerk? Roll call.
Council,
She does have a
I just had one more comment. So hearing that, you know, the mayor is looking, is
Just to be
willing.
clear,
Yeah.
make it quick, because we do have a motion to move the question, so I
Okay.
shouldn't even
So
allow you to speak.
Hearing that she is even willing to look at all these things, can't we just, is it too late to have like a work session and at least try to figure it out for, if there's any way that we can save the taxpayers, the extra tax money that they would have to pay, why wouldn't we just try to do that?
Well, we're already going to have a late tax bill as it is.
Yeah, but I'm sure if it ends up being lower, people they would appreciate that. And I think that if we can work it out here, you know, I don't know if anyone else is willing, but I would be willing to have some kind of a work session.
I think that it's beyond that point now. The mechanism in place has been played out. The time for those discussions was probably before the mayor submitted her original budget. Those discussions never took
But
place.
there's nothing limiting us from doing it.
So, Madam Clerk, roll call.
If you want me to withdraw the veto,
No.
So I just want
Solicitor?
to make sure the council understands, a yes is to override the veto, a no is to sustain the veto.
Correct.
Okay.
Councilman Canoia.
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
No.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
No.
Councilman Gillette.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra.
yes.
Councilman Susie.
yes.
Councilman Ward.
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes. And the veto is overridden 6-1.
Council President?
We got one more,
Oh, okay.
please. If we can take up, Madam Clerk, 22M05.
A communication from mayor submitted veto message on ordinance 22029 pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 9 of the Woonsocket Home Rule Charter.
Same. John, what was the language you said?
What was the message?
Yeah. Motion to,
Motion to approve the ordinance notwithstanding the disapproval of the mayor. So a yes vote is an override of the veto, a no vote is a sustaining of the veto.
in connection with the mayor's message of disapproval for 22029, I make a motion to.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer, seconded by Councilman Ward. Roll call, comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoia.
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
No.
Councilman Gillette.
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra.
Yes.
Councilman Susie.
Yes.
Councilman Ward.
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes. And the veto is overridden on a 6-1 vote. So 22M04 and 22M05 are both passed, overridden 6-1. So moving back to the regular order of business.
Okay, Council President, I just want to excuse myself for the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sierra.
Thank you.
Moving back to the agenda for Board of License Commissioners, Madam Clerk.
22 LC 24, application of first-class victualling license by Mom's Home Cooking at 6 Florida Street.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez. Comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And 22 LC 24 is approved, 6-0.
22 LC 25, application on transfer of automobile junkyard license from Interstate Towing and Auto Parts Metal Recycling to 855 River Street LLC at 855 River Street.
Motion to pass.
Motion
Second.
made by Councilman Gillette, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22 LC 25 is approved, 6-0.
22 LC 26, application of secondhand dealer's merchandise license by Legit Sneakerheads at 6 Winthrop Street.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward,
Second?
seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez and Councilman Gillette. Comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22 LC 26 is approved, 6-0.
22 LC 27, application of licenses and renewal of licenses.
Before we have a motion, I just have a question for the solicitor. The link did not exist on the agenda to view the list. It says, when you look at that application of licenses and renewals of licenses, it says listing attached, but the attachment was not attached. Can we move with that, or do we have to table them all?
Where are you on?
Under agenda for Board of License Commissioners, right beneath 22 LC 26.
22L,
It probably was 22, 27?
Yes.
so 22, so when you hit the
LC
link, you
27.
don't come up with the
There's
information?
no link.
There's no link, just for these?
Just for that, for the application of licenses and renewal of licenses.
So then the people didn't get an opportunity to review it, so we should table it to the next meeting.
Okay, so what do we, was that 27?
Yes, it was.
All right, if we could get a motion to table 22 LC 27. Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez, to table 22 LC 27. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22 LC 27 is tabled, 6-0. Public comment. I would ask if there's anyone here that would like to address the city council, that you please approach the podium, adjust the microphone so that we can hear you. State your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments in good taste and under 5 minutes. Is there anyone here that would like to address the city council?
My name's Charles Lemoyne. I got a comment. Is there any more pieces of paper like that that you can put up? Because, well, this desk doesn't get the sun anymore, but the other desks get the sun. So, you know, I'll start a thing to get us some paper to put up there. I'll start a thing with a dollar or two if you want to take my collection. Maybe next time I come, I won't have the sun in my eyes. I don't have them right now, but they were earlier today. And the other thing is, I'm always telling people to speak into the mic. By now, they should know enough to pull the mic close enough, even if they don't speak into it. You know, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, can you ask if the facility director could maybe look into doing something similar to some of the...
We ordered blinds.
Yeah.
They're coming
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Director.
in. We're a step ahead of you. We're putting up the line.
No, you're behind because you're set up.
You can save your dollar.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the city council?
How you doing? My name is Shannon Ross. I live at 230 Oakley Road.
Sir, can you repeat your name?
My name is Shannon Ross. I live at 230 Oakley Road in Woonsocket. I just moved to the city a year ago, and I see a lot of great potential here. And just listening to the council, it seems like everybody's passionate, including the mayor and everyone sitting here. The city has great history, and a lot of things can be done here. And I'm hoping as I go for city council that I can help everyone come together and realize that it's about community. It's not about our egos. It's not about anything. It's about the people. It's about how we raise together and how we can get people to come experience it in Woonsocket and not them influence Woonsocket, experience us. Because being here in this last year, I've seen a lot of great people. I've seen a lot of great things. I've seen so much potential here. And it makes me very passionate to hope that in any way that I can, invest in my community, from the kids all the way up to the elderly. I want to be there for that. Whether it's through city council, whether it's through volunteering, whether it's through anything. I'm here for it. And I just wanted to say that and say hi to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the city council?
Hi, my name is Michelle Stabor, and I live at 139 Ray Avenue. And I'm trying to understand what's taking place with raising the tax rate. In a year where the reevaluation has almost doubled some of our properties, I was hoping that it was actually going to be lowered.
It is.
It's going to be lowered?
It is lowered.
Okay.
So the current tax rate is 20,
23 and change.
Is 2375.
the current tax rate is 23.75.
Okay,
So it's going down to 13.98.
okay,
So that will offset most of what happens with revaluation.
Okay, I'm glad I asked the question because I wasn't understanding the numbers. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the city council? Hearing none,
No, I am.
we will move on. I don't believe you.
This,
One more. Chris?
Oh, Councilman,
Christopher Beauchamp, 37 Meadow Road, Woonsocket. Good evening, all.
good evening.
My neighbor Shannon, who just spoke, said kind of what I was going to say. And the reason why I put my name back in the ring here is because of people like Shannon, who is committed to this city but has only been here a short time. So if we can embrace people like Shannon and other people that move here and see the potential in this city, I think we'll all be in a better place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening again. I have one thing to share with you that is not on the docket this evening. It was delivered to City Hall, and I think it's extremely important to share with everyone.
Now, Solicitor, is this okay to, I know you had told me when I had wanted to approach something like this, you had said we weren't able to do this if it's not on the agenda as an elected official.
Right.
Is this okay?
Because you're the public body, the mayor is actually attending your meeting, so I assume she's here to talk like a regular citizen. Is that what you're
Okay.
doing?
Thank
So
you.
it's not,
That would do
you're
it.
not talking as mayor today, then?
You're talking as a regular citizen?
I'm talking to share something that was brought to City Hall.
Is it as the mayor?
It's informational, right?
It's informational.
Go ahead.
If it isn't, then you can stop me. Or do you want to take a 2-minute recess so I can share with you what it is?
I mean, I think if it's information.
So you're saying that as a resident of the city, attending their meeting, I can't speak under good and welfare?
You could speak on the good and welfare, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
John, can you use the mic, please?
Yeah. So you could speak on the good and welfare as a citizen, of course. The reason why I suggested that the council didn't, because the council, it's their meeting, so it would sort of be against the actual tenor of the open meetings law to have them just come off the podium, the dais, and come and speak. So, but it's not your meeting, so I think that you probably could do it as long as it's informational.
Well, Mayor, here's what we're going to do. Out of an abundance of caution, Councilman Canoyer is going to make a motion to add to the agenda what you want to discuss for discussional purposes only, and then it'll be,
Yeah, we could do it
Is that
that
the-
way. That's a good idea.
that's the safest way, right?
Yeah, so why don't we
So-
just make a motion?
I make a motion to add to the agenda for discussion purposes only pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246-6B. Mayor, what is it?
Rhode Island remembers.
What is it?
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island remembers. Motion made by Councilman,
Aye. Oops.
motion made by Councilman Canoyer, seconded by Councilman Gillette. To add to the agenda for discussion purposes only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mayor, take it away.
Now?
Yeah.
Or under my,
No, right now. We just added it.
so let's just, for the sake of having clear understanding, if you could get give us, do some research and let us know so we don't go through this again, if I can speak,
Yeah,
okay?
I would've-
Thank you.
I didn't know that you were going to speak.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just think, we need to know the answer to that, so I'll know in the future. We received this sign, which I want to share with you. It says, "In America, Rhode Island, remember." And this sign was given to all 39 cities and towns across the state and delivered to the city of Woonsocket. Was 268 white flags. The 268 white flags represent people from the city of Woonsocket who died from COVID-19. We were given these flags so we can blanket an area with them, post the sign, and create, I guess what you could say is a memorial showing our respect and remembrance to those who lost someone during this pandemic. So we are finalizing the location as to where we will put them. We're looking to put them in a place that they'll be left alone, and we will leave them up as the other communities across the state will. So I just wanted to share with you, share with the public, that there were 268 Woonsocket residents who died from COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the City Council? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion, please?
I make a motion to.
Motion made by Councilman Susi, seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez, to receive the consent agenda as presented. Are there any items to be taken up separately?
Council President,
Councilman Ward.
I would like to have 22 CS 26 taken off the consent agenda for separate discussion.
Okay, motion made to receive the consent agenda with the exception of 22 CS 26. Are there any other items to be taken up separately? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And the consent agenda is received as presented. Do we have a motion to receive 22 CS 26?
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments?
Council President.
Councilman Ward.
The reason I asked for this to be taken out of the consent agenda was because as I read through the document, which is a claim of the Narragansett Electric Company, and I believe Councilman Canoyer alluded to it earlier, this claim is that the Narragansett Electric Company contends in their lawsuit against the city that their tangible properties were overvalued rather significantly. And specifically when you add up all of the differences, if we were to, I guess for lack of a better term, if we were to lose this case and have to pay them back everything they paid, it would come up to $1,176,000 approximately. That's all money that's been collected because they're required to pay Mr. Solicitor in order to make these appeals. And so it is sitting in our surplus and would have to be taken out of our budget to reduce our revenue or increase our expense. And it troubles me that for the last several years we have been having to do abatements that have been in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now comes this one that's over $1 million and represents a valuation dispute of $25 million. And I don't understand why we have had this dispute, but it's consistent with a couple of other items that have come up recently, because this is an old dispute. I remember having a conversation with the chairman of the Board of Tax Assessment Review, who at the time happened to be my brother, when he mentioned this specific issue that came up in 2021 or whenever the hearing was held, with instructions to the tax assessor to provide Narragansett Electric with an explanation of the valuation that was assigned to those properties. This is an old one, as I said, and it's not inconsistent with the fact that we just settled a very old Navigant issue. Further on the agenda tonight, we're going to be settling a very old Rise Mayoral Academy issue with an abatement of $60-some thousand. And it's troubled me that this keeps having these large dollar amounts pop up that are in our revenue and in our surplus and have to be paid out. And it triggered a memory from about the middle of 2021 when I ended up in a conversation and a communication exchange with a tax assessor that worked for the city for a very short period of time. And she was rather unceremoniously escorted out of the building and put on administrative leave and subsequently dismissed. And as it turns out, more than a year ago, I received communication that spoke of the fact that Navigant Credit Union was being billed even though they were tax exempt, and some senior administrative staff indicated that we were never going to pay them that money back. Well, ultimately, legally, we had to, and we finally did after over a year. And I don't even want to go into what she alleges was actually said, but it was not flattering. It was also pointed out back then that the Rise Mayoral Academy problem existed, and that was pointed out well over a year ago, and yet we're only receiving that tonight as though there was something in dispute, but from a year ago there was never anything in dispute. But as troubling this Narragansett Electric issue came up back then too, and it was quite clear that those tangible assessments were overvalued to the assessor then that worked for us for a very short time, and at the time it was indicated that the differential in value was about $15 million. As it turns out now, that differential in value has climbed to $25 million that we have to possibly refund the taxes on. My point is, we knew about all of this, or the tax assessor knew about all of this, and because she knew and understood her job as the tax assessor and asserted that she couldn't properly or legally certify a tax roll in 2021 that would have these egregious errors in it and monies owed back to companies and overvaluations that had to be corrected, but administration refused to, and having refused to certify a tax roll that included these known and egregious errors, she was dismissed. And now we complain we don't have staff and we can't find the tax assessor. We had a tax assessor. We had a tax assessor that, in every indication I got in my communication with her, knew exactly what her job was, knew exactly what the problem was, knew exactly how to correct it, and was told it wasn't going to happen. And as it turns out, it's going to happen. But it's not going to happen the right way, and it's not going to happen in the appropriate time. And we're going to be out $1 million of tax money that we were supposedly properly collecting. I just wanted to make sure people were aware of some of the things that I have been concerned about ever since we ended up with a revaluation several years ago, not this last full revaluation, the one before that, where commercial properties, especially residential rental properties, were significantly overvalued, and now we see that some companies were burdened with excessive valuations on tangible property taxes, which is actually a self-reporting system. It's not even an item where the city goes out and assesses values. It's a company gives you a list of assets depreciated in accordance with state statute. That's the number, and unless there's a factual error in the list of assets or an error in a calculation that can be documented, it is what it is. The only time you would ever see something other than a report or a tax on what they report would be if they don't report, in which case assessors will often put some stipulated amount just to say, reflect the fact that there must be something in the business that's taxable, but if you refuse to report it, so we're going to assess something. Those are usually small businesses and they're very small amounts, but Narragansett Electric is not one of those. And it troubles me, and I just wanted the public to be aware of how this, the administration has been dealing with these issues, and it's been delaying and delaying and delaying, and we've had to pay out well over $1 million in rebates and possibly another $1 million coming up. And I needed to just express that. I thank you for the time.
And Councilman Ward, it was alluded to tonight, but when we make these abatements, what does that do to our collection rate?
Well, I'm not sure what it does to our collection rate for the current levy, but these are payments against prior year's levies. So whatever's reported as a collection rate is incorrect by whatever effect that would have on the percentage for the years involved. So It's not really about a current year collection rate. It's, I mean, unless you apply it all to the current year, then it's a lower collection rate. It depends on how it's reported in the accounting system, whether a reduction in revenue or as an expense.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, I will ask for, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22 CS 26 is received 6-0. 22 CS 27.
Motion to receive?
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments?
Actually, you know, the only comment I have on this, if you don't mind, is this is a claim from a former employee about wages. And the only piece that, to use a term that I heard recently on the radio, quote, needs to be taken note of, close quote, is a couple weeks ago, more than a couple weeks ago, we had a discussion about open positions and the number of open positions we had and so forth. And Councilwoman Gonzalez asked about morale. She asked because there was some discussions about we weren't paying enough, that's why we were losing people. And Councilwoman Gonzalez asked about the morale of the workforce. And during the discussion, the mayor said, we don't have a toxic work environment. And I kind of thought that was odd because nobody up here mentioned the term toxic work environment. That was something that came out of the mayor's mouth. And again, something I learned recently needs to be taken note of is on page 2 of this, reason for separation, quit due to toxic work environment. So.
Any other comments?
Councilman
I will-
Johnson?
Mayor?
Yes. Am I running for council?
I'm sorry?
So I would just like to comment. So I'm not going to comment on this because I feel it's a personnel issue. The city solicitor does not think it is. I will not speak about the issue itself or the person's name. I will tell you I have some beautiful text messages of thanks from this particular employee. It is. Let me just say that sometimes people need to create a picture to support what it is that they're looking to do or what they're looking to receive. That speaks to someone's character. It's unfortunate, but it happens. I can tell you that Director Chamberlain has never indicated that there's any type of negative environment within her department. It's not a department I'm in very often. In fact, I'm not in many departments very often unless I'm in a meeting with those departments. So I will tell you, I truly look forward to the day that we will be addressing the issue that you have before you, because there is a lot of information that I'm looking forward to share. And I did tell the solicitor that I do not want him attending without me, because I do have quite a bit of information that I feel needs to be shared with the department that this claim is regarding.
Thank you. Solicitor, in the communication from the Department of Labor and Training where the complaint was filed against the city, their letter to the city basically says that if we don't fight the charges and we accept them, we pay the complainant in full and a 15% penalty. If we do that, then the Department of Labor or Training will not pursue any other charges against the city. But it says each day of failure to pay wages due an employee at the time specified in this chapter shall constitute a separate and distinct violation. So has your recommendation been to just pay this and move on, or are we actually fighting against the Department of Labor and Training?
Well, I think in this particular case, the client is the mayor, and we had a a very informed discussion, and it was the decision, the mayor wants to go forward with it. So, you know, as in any case, there's always, the client makes the determination. I'm just the lawyer. Certainly, like we brought up the case of the abatements, a lot of those abatements we settle, so a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. So sometimes you want to settle a case so you don't expose yourself, but there's other times where you feel strongly about something, and the mayor feels strongly about this, so she's the client. So,
But this could end up costing us more in the long run.
of course, anytime you fight a case and you lose, it always costs you more.
Yeah.
That's why you settle. But,
This is minimal. I think you're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars. You're talking about a couple $1,000s.
No, but I think it's huge to the individual, and I think the Department of Labor and Training has pretty clear guidance that they are recommending, but,
well, I just, not to cut you off, Council President, but we are going to be in a posture of litigation, so I don't really want to comment much more. I think we all
Okay.
know, you know. there's
then with your
certain-
advice, I will stop talking about it. Yep.
Because I'll be at a hearing someday and advocating something, so.
No, I will stop there. So, any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22 CS 27 is received 6-0. 22 CS 28.
Motion to receive.
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer,
Second?
seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez. Comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22 CS 28 is received 6-0. Moving on to presentations, I'm sorry?
Minutes.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Approval and correction of the minutes of the meeting held June 20th, 2022.
To approve as submitted.
Motion made by Councilman Ward,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Canoyer. Comments, changes?
I got two quick changes.
Councilman Canoyer.
Under section 13, under 22021, it says, in the paragraph, it says, eliminate lead program reimbursement. That was actually add lead program reimbursement. So we're getting a credit in, so it's an add of a credit. And then on page 26, Madam Clerk, it says increase library director from $63,595. It should say increase library director to $63,595. So change the word from to the word to. That's it.
Thank you.
Any other changes, corrections? Councilman Susi?
No, it's a good catch.
Oh, okay. Any other changes, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And the minutes from the June 20th, 2022 meeting are approved as amended, 6-0. Moving on to presentations of petitions, memorials, and remonstrances.
22P24, request of mayor to address the city council regarding the following items. 1, ARPA funds and how they can be used generally and specifically, how they can be used to affect the residential and commercial tax rate.
Okay, thank you. So I think I was pretty clear before you took the vote, and you chose to raise the tax rate more than what was necessary. The ARPA funds are funds that we could have utilized, and at a time when, as Michelle Stabor indicated, we had revals. We have some folks who are having tax increases. We have others who are having tax decreases. We have some who are staying somewhat neutral. But at the end of the day, we will be collecting close to an additional $500,000 from taxpayers that was not necessary to collect. I will never agree with that, especially knowing that we had the ability to implement what was put forward by the council during the budget talks. And I feel as though the additional increase to every single person's taxes in the city of Woonsocket is something that I don't support. and I will defend the administration on the fact that that we could have done this without the tax increase, and I thank Councilwoman Gonzalez for seeing that. Do you want me to continue?
Yeah, there's 2 more items
Okay.
that you have, yes.
So secondly, Dunn Park, we had this conversation before. I just want folks to know, and we will be putting a press release out, that Dunn Park is complete other than the landscaping. The playground equipment upgrades is what I'm referring to. And the landscaping will take place in the fall, but the equipment is in. It looks beautiful. I was there the other day, and actually I was there more than once, and it looks great. Kids are playing, families are happy, and I'm hopeful now that it's summer, it'll be utilized even more. I also want folks to know that we have done, several folks have gone out, including Director DeBrois and others, have gone to Costa Park, and we are evaluating the playground equipment in Costa Park. We will be making some upgrades there as well. Those upgrades may not be finished in 2022. It depends on who the successful bidder is and if the equipment is accessible. As we know, things have pretty much slowed down with inventory. So just happy to say we've basically finished the circuit of improvements to parks, and that was something that I state all the time is extremely important to me, seeing children out playing and getting exercise, getting fresh air, being away from the electronics, and enjoying themselves. So we are trying to put equipment in at the parks that is a little different, some different pieces from other parks, so this way families will want to try different parks throughout the city instead of having every park having the same type of equipment. So thank you to everybody who's been working on that. I appreciate everybody's help, and I think it's really important to the community to have good quality parks.
Okay. Moving on
Council
to
President,
Councilman Canoyer.
I'd like to make a motion to add the following items to the agenda for discussion purposes pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 4246B. Water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, Resolution 22034 regarding stipends, financial reports, 162 Main Street, 148 Hamlet Ave, 80 River Street, and CDBG grants. And I promise I'll go quick.
A motion has been made
Second.
by Councilman Canoyer, seconded by Councilman Ward, to add to the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Councilman Canoyer.
Director D'Agostino, the water treatment plant, we had some issues several months ago on the chlorine, but it looks like everything's been rectified and in good order. Fair statement?
That's fair.
Are we happy with what is going on up there? Oh, speak.
That's fair.
But the water treatment plant, just in general, happy with where we
Yes.
are, with the operations?
Yes,
No
it
complaints.
just changed hands recently.
Yep.
You may know, not know, Veolia is now the operator of the plant. They purchased Suez,
Yep.
North America or worldwide or whatever, but Veolia is now, I had a meeting with them. Everything seems to be fine.
Good. Thank you. Wastewater. Still work in process in terms of dealing with the issue with the effluent going into the river?
No, we put out, good water to the river.
Yep.
We don't have any violations currently with that.
So are there any fixes to be made, or? are we
Oh,
done?
yes.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I meant in terms
Yeah.
of work in process. I'm
Oh, it's
sorry,
a work in
Steve.
process, yeah.
Yeah,
We
so-
just evaluated what's called a gravity thickener. I'm not going to even, again, begin to describe what that does, but that's been there since the 70s, and the mechanisms are going to need to be replaced, and it'll be substantial in cost, I'm told, but I haven't gotten that report yet on that evaluation. So when I do, I will notify you all.
Good.
And I told you also that I'm gonna bring to this council a method manufacturing our own cake, if you will, processing our sludge and making cake. So if there's ever a problem with Synagro, and I can assure you that there will be in the future, this plant cannot go a day or two without processing sludge. So we have some sludge presses there currently because the plant was in such disarray that we had to bring equipment on board. Jacobs did, that is, to process the sludge and make our own cake, which Synagro is currently burning. Some went to the landfill. But all the levels are back to normal in the tanks, knock on wood. And, but we're going to bring a permanent solution. So the city, long after I'm gone, will never be in a situation where we're going to violate, we're going to be out of compliance. And that'll be substantial in cost as well.
Hey, thank you, Director. Appreciate the efforts, and I'll say for myself, I know it's not easy. There's a lot of moving parts. The one comment I do have on this whole thing is I heard the mayor on the radio, and she was talking about the length of the contract. She said, what I do want to check into is it's a 20-year contract. You know, who the hell voted for this thing? And she said it was a council introduction. Well, the Synagro goes back to 1988. I don't know who was mayor in 1988. I wasn't around, but somebody else can figure that one out. But you just told me, Director, that you're happy with what's going on at the water treatment plant. We're in good shape. I just remind the public that that's a 20-year agreement.
It is.
Executed by this administration and the council. I have in front of me, this is a cell phone. It's a smartphone. Can't get through life without it for most people, not everybody, but it's an important part of people's lives. It's in big demand. One would probably call it such big demand, it's a gem, much like our sewage treatment plant was recently referred to as. Verizon contract for cell tower use on Park East, 25 years, at the request of this administration. Verizon contract at Rhodes Ave, 25 years, at the request of this administration. Singular contract for Rhodes Ave on the cell tower, 25 years, at the request of this administration. Interjurisdictional agreement to process the sewage from North Smithfield, 20-some-odd year contract, this administration. My point is, I know it's fun to be on the radio and say it's a council introduction somehow, and we're going to go back and figure out who entered into this. Big companies like Synagro and Veolia and others, they don't enter into 3- and 5-year contracts when they have to make massive investments and have contracts with other communities, okay? I just gave you 4 or 5 examples of where the city has entered into 25-year and 20-year contracts. And as you know, on the cell towers, we had some amendments, and I pushed to increase the fees. I would love to be able to increase the fees on the existing stuff, but we have 25-year agreements at the request of the administration. So I just, you know, my view is I wish we'd spend a little more time trying to get to the problem and just solving, as opposed to getting into a mode of, you know, who signed this, it's a council initiative, yada, yada, yada. That's not productive in my mind, so. And I would like, Director, if you get a chance, if you could have your staff send over a copy of the existing Synagro contracts as well as the Jacobs contract to all of us. Thank you. Next one, stipends. Again, I make the mistake of listening to the radio. Mayor, I heard you talk about the stipends audit that's being done, and you indicated you've spoken to and you're engaging an attorney, Mr. Carenti. I'm not sure why, for a couple reasons. Number one, there have been no allegations made to defend against. We are simply, at this point, looking at a list of stipends, payments made to individuals There have been no judgments or no accusations or no assertions made other than we need to gather the facts. So we're going through the process where we're having the city's auditors conduct some agreed-upon procedures. Once we get the facts, then we can start to talk about next steps and judgments and so forth as to what we do from there. But there have been no allegations. I will say, though, as it has been alluded to, this is not dissimilar, and we can all agree to disagree, but this is not dissimilar to what we saw in part over at the Housing Authority. And, reading from press reports that at the Housing Authority, they had pay increases that were awarded unapproved by the board. And the individuals involved defended them. And they defended those increases, and they said the individuals had to do extra work. Well, that's great. They had to do extra work. But 3 people lost their jobs in the end when all the dust settled. And I'm not saying that's the case here, but it's not dissimilar. And what happened at the Housing Authority, and the director here who happens to be on the Housing Authority can attest to it. I'm not putting him on the spot, and I'm not asking him to say a word, but the fact is, step 1, there was an audit. Information was assessed by the Board of Commissioners. They then brought in an attorney to do a further investigation. They went through the process, and ultimately 3 long-term employees lost their jobs. And I'm not making any judgments on that. I don't have a dog in that fight. But this is very similar. There are payments that have been made. The City Council establishes, and we have it here tonight and last week, or 2 weeks ago, by ordinance, per the charter, compensation is set by ordinance. And there are additional compensation payments made. I'm not going to get into any of the specifics. It doesn't matter until we get the facts. So where we are in the process is simply the same place that, a very similar place, I should say, not exactly the same, that the Woonsocket Housing Authority was in. There's an audit being performed. From there, we'll decide what the next steps are. So at this point, there's no need to be talking to attorneys about defending, because there's nothing to defend against. There have been no allegations or assertions made, number 1. And number 2, as you know, the only people that are in, we have a solicitor. They're in charge of hiring and making decisions on outside counsel. So I just wanted to comment on that. Financial reports. We have in the city charter, the finance department shall prepare a monthly, and I emphasize the word monthly, statement of receipts and disbursements in sufficient detail to show the exact financial condition of the city, yada, yada, yada. There's state law, Rhode Island General Law 451222.2. The chief financial officer of the municipality shall submit a report on a monthly basis to the municipality's chief executive officer and each member of the council. We have a resolution that we passed back in 2016, just reemphasizing that. We have not received a financial report since November. November was the last one we received. So I don't know what we have to do to get back on track, but this stuff to me is, I don't know how we're managing the city if we're not looking at this stuff. I'm assuming it's getting completed. We're just not getting copied on it. So we need to get caught up. And it's no different than Mr. Luba, who's not here tonight. We made him the administrator for the opera funds, specifically supposed to provide a monthly report. We had to chase him. He finally gave us a report last week, or 2 weeks ago. But that was established back in November, and we went up until June before we got our first report. And that's not surprising for Mr. Luber. He's not here tonight, but frankly, it was the same thing when he was the financial overseer. I think I saw 2 reports from him the whole time he was here. So we need to adhere to this stuff. It's the law for a reason. It's in the charter for a reason. We need to get the financial reports. So I would appreciate some attention to that. 162 Main Street. Is there any update on that, Mike, Director? We had somebody that came in here back in September, was talking about putting in micro lofts and all kinds of stuff. We haven't heard anything since, and I thought we also went out and obtained an estimate to demolish the building, since we have fences around it half the time because it's falling into the parking lot and onto the sidewalk, etc. So any update on that?
The present owner still has it for sale.
Okay?
And
So,
we've had maybe once a month, we get somebody who calls up to inquire about it, but couple meetings, it's usually just, kicking the tires.
Yep, so maybe we need to start thinking hard about knocking it down and doing something different with the property. What about 148 Hamlet Ave? The poster child for blight in the city of Woonsocket. I think we asked about that about 3-4 weeks ago, and you said there was a gentleman that may have had interest. You get back to us.
Yes, he has interest, and we are looking to see if there's any funding that may be, federal funding that may be available for asbestos abatement. The cost for not our federal funding of ARPA, but there are sometimes pots of money that the federal government likes to use to remove asbestos. So we're looking for that, to try to balance the cost of what the renovation would be. We're seeing if there's any type of funds available to try to offset the asbestos removal portion of it. So we're looking at that now, and if there is, he definitely has interest in the building. The stickler right now is the cost of the asbestos removal. So we're trying to see if we can save the building, see if we can have the building renovated, and see if we can assist along the way without burdening our taxpayers to do it.
Has he seen the report that you had the engineers
Yes,
put
he
together?
has.
Because, asbestos is probably the least of his concerns in that dump. So, okay.
Well, yes.
At some
So if
point,
we-
we'll have to.
If the council president wants to call me so we can choose a date that works for the council and works for the administration, we can have that discussion.
Agreed.
In addition to that, going back to 162 Main Street, I think that, it is not a bad idea to have a discussion to determine up until what point we want to wait before we move to foreclose on the right of redemption of that property and make a decision.
Yep.
And it's a big decision, it's a big building, it's big money, but it's a decision that we're put in this place to make these decisions.
Absolutely.
So I think,
And I think we collectively, I don't mean anybody up here, but you, the city, et cetera, we've been pretty patient with that building, and it's not from a lack of trying, but at some point, from my perspective, I can tell you right up front here, at some point, we got to fish a cut bait.
we want to respect the fact that there is an owner, but we also
That doesn't
need
pay
to
taxes.
take into
There's an owner that
consideration.
doesn't pay taxes
The owner,
and doesn't take care of his building. So, that's all. I'm not trying to be difficult, but at some point, I think I'm not sure we disagree on this, to be honest with you. Okay. 80 River Street. So when we bought Alley's Pub back in 2018, in fact, Councilman Boschman had left the meeting, but he was the sponsor of the resolution to buy it. And at the time, we said, we're going to put in a dock. And we had a dock, I think it was parked at the Highway Department, from the Blackstone River Valley, whatever it is. So, two things. Number one, are we ever going to put the dock in? And number two, because at the time, the way it was discussed and presented, it was, we're going to buy the building, knock it down, and we're going to have a dock in. We're 4 years later. That's number one. And number two, can our best-in-class public service department, public works, get rid of the sawhorses and just have a fence put up along the edge if we're not doing anything? Those sawhorses have been there for, I've lost track of how long. Can we just put up a split rail fence along the river and at least get the temporary sawhorses out of there if we're,
well, putting up a
It's
fence
unsightly.
is costly, so we could put Jersey barriers. We're going to be removing some Jersey barriers if Jersey barriers, I'll
I
talk
don't
to
want
the
Jersey
dir-
barriers.
the
I'm
director
thinking
and I.
fence like on the old, the bar they took down on South Main Street, right next to,
Right. So I'll talk to the director. We'll figure out what to
Okay.
put there. But the point is that we're trying to keep cars off of the property.
I understand what we're trying to do,
So we
but-
need to place the fence in a position to keep people off of our property. So, but to answer your question about the dock, the conversation that we had with our partner in that had indicated that they were doing the engineering work for the dock, and they were, their portion of the contribution was to, call it contribution, was to do the engineering work and the construction of the dock. They could not afford to purchase the property, demolish the property, et cetera. So we moved forward to purchase the property, demolish the property, and met with them. They came in with the plans that they have for the dock. I can't even tell you at this point, it was so long ago because we bought that several years ago, exactly what it looks like. But in the end of the meeting, we said, okay, we'll review them. We'll make certain that it works, you know, through engineering at the time and the director's office. And they said, well, right now we don't have the money for it. So I said, well, you know, we kind of lived up to our end of the deal. So that's how it's been left. We did have the opportunity to pick up the dock. We did tell them that we can move forward. We want them to bring the Explorer boat back. We can do that. We can have another conversation with them. I will tell you this, 80 River Street was in an email to the council president to talk about in a work session, I believe. He had indicated we didn't have time for it at that particular work session. So I think that that should be on there, because the reality is Market Square is very busy. People are enjoying that area. Restaurants are doing well, but we hear the same thing over and over again. We just wish there was one more place. We just wish there was, and then everybody gives their opinion. They want a wine bar, they want a dessert shop, they want another restaurant to choose from. So personally, I feel it makes sense for us to go out to the public to request that anyone who has interest in that particular piece of land to bring their thoughts forward, to see what it is that they would like to develop and see how we go through. So we could put an RFQ out, but I want to have a conversation with the council. I don't want to do that and then hear nobody has interest in you know,
Doing that,
entertaining
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Right.
So two things, and I'll respectfully ask the council president to reach out to the mayor and set up a time so we can talk about 80 River Street, 162, as well as 148 Hamlet at some point, not to be decided at the moment here. And the second thing is, I agree with you, Market Square is very busy, busy, and that's one of the reasons I'd like to get the temporary sawhorses that are not the most attractive thing in that busy area removed. And I don't care if we put up arborvitaes or whatever, but you know, we put up a split rail fence, as I said, on South Main Street across from the old industrial supply when we knocked that old bar down. And maybe we just do something like that, which there's a modest cost to it. But anyways, all right, thank you.
Councilman, can I just
Yes.
add to that? I had the privilege of going all the way into Central Falls for an unveiling or a revealing or a ribbon cutting for what I honestly envisioned happening at 80 River Street. They now have a dock, they have a restaurant, they have a huge amount of activity. So it was a great location. It's flooded with people, and that is the draw. That has brought so much activity to that immediate area. So I think it's very important to get something moving, because we could be at the other end with a different dock. And they pointed out, here's the point I wanted to make. The Blackstone River is 45 miles long. And if you do the math, there's 2 banks on the Blackstone River, which means there's 90 miles of banks on the Blackstone River. And what we hear is everybody wants to develop river frontage. And until this restaurant opened in Central Falls a few weeks ago, on those 90 miles of banks, there was only one restaurant that existed along the banks of the Blackstone River. And that one restaurant was in Woonsocket. And they said only Woonsocket, and they were saying this publicly at the ribbon cutting, that only Woonsocket, to that point, had the foresight of developing a restaurant right on the banks of the Blackstone. So we could have, Central Falls now has the second restaurant. If we do something with 80 River Street, we could have the third restaurant on a 90-mile banking of the river. It's like begging to be developed. Councilman, thank you.
Last item, very quickly, Mike, I won't cover it, we don't have to spend, I don't want to, could you send us an email and an update on the status of the CDBG funds in terms of, A, the amendment that was, the substantial amendment that was processed, and B, where we are with what was approved for 22, those individuals that are getting funds and so forth. If you could just send us some kind of a written communication, either email or a memo or whatever, and thank you. That's it.
Moving back to the regular order of business, unfinished business of the previous meetings.
22025, establishing the maximum number of employees in each office, department, or agency of the City of Woonsocket for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and ending June 30th, 2023, in accordance with Chapter 9 of the City of Woonsocket Home Rule Charter.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Canoyer. Comments? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22025 is approved, 6-0, second passage.
22026, an amendment of Chapter 7345 of the Ordinance of the City of Woonsocket,
Motion to approve.
Second.
Yes, sorry.
entitled Salaries of City Officers of the City of Woonsocket.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Canoyer. Comments? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22026 is approved, 6-0, second passage.
22027, establishing salaries of non-union, non-classified employees of the City of Woonsocket.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez. Comments?
I got one amendment under city planner. I just want to be clear that the 70,520 was at the high end, so it's still a range of 65 to 70,520.
So is that an amendment or just a clarification?
Just a clarification.
Okay. So there's no amendment to that. So any other comments? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez? Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22027 is approved, 6-0, second passage.
22028, an amendment of Chapter 7595 of the Ordinances of the City of Woonsocket, entitled Personnel Ordinance, as amended pertaining to non-union classified municipal employees.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Gillette and Canoyer. Comments? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22028 is approved, second passage, 6-0.
22034, an amendment of Section 6 entitled Examination Procedure for Classified and Fire Positions of Appendix A, the Personnel Ordinance.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Gillette. Comments? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22034 is approved, 6-0, second passage.
22R42, approving the appointment of a member of the Redevelopment Agency of Woonsocket by the mayor.
Motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion made by Councilman Susie, seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez. Comments?
I make a motion to table until we get more information, as we discussed before, as to what they're doing, so motion to table.
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Ward to table 22R42. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22R42 is tabled, 6-0.
22R84, ratifying the tentative agreement between Rhode Island Council 94, ASME, AFL-CIO, Professional and Technical Employees, Local 3851.
Motion to pass.
Motion made by Councilman Gillette, seconded by Councilman Canoyer. Comments? Hearing none. Roll call, Madam Clerk, please.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22R84 is approved, 6-0. New business.
22036, placing on the ballot for the general election to be held on November 8th, 2022, a question amending the City of Woonsocket Home Rule Charter to allow the City Council to appoint the City Solicitor.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Gillette. Comments? Hearing none.
Council President?
Mayor?
No, go ahead, Councilman.
No.
Okay. So I indicated this before, and I will again. I don't think Councilman Gillette can give a clear reason as to why he's putting this forward, other than some things that he stated at the last meeting, which is not reason to be moving forward with a charter question like this. I think what I find interesting is I'm still waiting for the solicitor to give his opinion on something like this, being a legislator himself and seeing the imbalance in government that this brings. I will tell you that moving forward with this brings a total imbalance to government, and that I will protect the executive branch if this passes tonight, which I'm sure it will, and I will look to do what is needed, not just for the sake of this administration, but for any administration that comes forward in the future, that there should be a balance of government. There is a balance. Councilwoman Gonzalez, Councilman Susie, both indicated that at the last meeting. The mayor puts forward the name of a solicitor, and the city council has to ratify that name. The fact that this is on the agenda by Councilman Ward and Councilman Gillette because 10 years ago or 20 years ago, Councilman Gillette didn't like something a solicitor said back then is not sensical. It's just, I don't know if you're just grasping for a reason to come up with, but the reality is this is not what government is about. This is not what we're elected to do. This is potentially a violation of separation of powers. This is potentially a violation of the Constitution. And I will tell you this is encroaching on the executive branch of government. And I did state before, and I will state again, I have to protect the executive branch of government, and I will need to have, because this does affect the solicitor personally, I will have to hire an attorney to protect the executive branch of government, because it's impeding on this branch. And if I don't do that, I'm not being fair to future mayors of the city of Woonsocket.
Thank you. President. Councilman Canoyer.
Okay. At the last meeting when this first came up, I voted in favor of it, but I didn't say anything. I just listened. So a couple things. The mayor specifically asked the solicitor at the meeting, is this legal? And the solicitor said, yes. So that's number one. Number two, the mayor indicated she was going to reach out to the Attorney General's office and other legal counsel. Have you done that yet?
So I just want to respond first to what you said about it being legal. I didn't say that he didn't say it was legal. Yes, it's legal for you to put an ordinance on the agenda.
No, the actual, if this passed.
That's right. So
Yeah,
if this
and he said
passed,
it was. Well, he's not going to put something, a question that wouldn't.
well, I guess we'll
legal.
find that out.
Well, did you check with the Attorney General,
I
as you said?
I did make inquiries, not to the Attorney General's office,
okay,
but
so
I did make inquiries.
Okay.
And
Okay.
without
So
me getting into detail of what
That's
they
fine.
said, I
So
will
you-
need to move
that's
forward.
fine. So you checked with Barrington and Bristol and Burrillville and
No,
Charlestown
no,
and East
no.
Greenwich? No, I got the floor. And Foster and Lincoln and Gloucester, Little Compton, Middletown, Narragansett, Newport, North Kingston, Smithfield, et cetera, that all have this?
No, you asked me
They're
if
all
I checked
illegal?
with them. I'm answering your question. I
Okay.
did not check with other
Okay.
municipalities.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I
So,
did
that's fine.
check with, regarding ordinances to circumvent a charter.
This isn't to circumvent the charter, this is to
So
amend the
first of
charter. No,
all,
no, I got the floor.
okay,
got
I
the floor,
apologize.
please. Thank you. I listened very patiently to what you said.
You're right.
This isn't to circumvent the charter, this is to amend the charter to give the same provision that cities and towns across the state have. And there's lots of different ways of doing this. So, here's what I would say to my colleagues, and you raised some concerns, David, Councilman Susi. First of all, the mayor made some statements that are just factually false. She said at the last meeting. So you're saying that because an attorney 10 years ago said something to the city council meeting that justifies a charter change where all the power of appointing a city solicitor or removing a city solicitor will come from the city council without input from the administration? That's just false, okay? There's no change to the removal provisions here. The way it works right now is the mayor puts forth a name and then the council has to approve it. That's for the appointment. The removal, nothing's changing with that. And the way the removal works, the solicitor can be removed by the mayor via resolution from the council, 4 votes. The council can decide to remove the solicitor via an ordinance that requires 5 votes. None of that is changing. The only thing that's changing is how the solicitor is appointed. So it's just false and misleading to suggest that this thing in any way, shape, or form it affects the removing of the city solicitor without any input from the administration. The exact same provisions exist. So I understand both the arguments on all sides of this, but I've thought about this, and I'll tell you where I am. And I'll give you a couple scenarios. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, and I'm not going to make it personal per se, but it may sound it a little bit, but let's just say 7 members of the council thought the current solicitor was the best thing since sliced bread and was doing a great job. But the mayor had a completely different view. Okay? Well, the council up here wouldn't even have an opportunity to vote because it requires the mayor to submit the name. Okay? So even though all 7 members up here may think the current solicitor, whoever that is in the seat, it's not specific to Mr. DeSimone, but if everybody up here was thrilled with the solicitor that we had, thought they were doing great work, come appointment time, unless the mayor sends it over, we don't even get a bite at the apple. That's an issue. So it all starts with one individual. They can just blow up the whole thing. All right. Second, I'll give you another scenario, because there's this nonsense that gets portrayed in the public airwaves and so forth that somehow the council's going to have control over the solicitor. But people need to remember the council is a body, a board of 7 people. So let's use almost that same scenario. Let's just say 6 members up here thought Mr. DeSimone was the best thing since sliced bread. And I'll say me, I think he's a bum. Let's just say I thought he was a bum, and I didn't want him. And I told him, we're going to get rid of you. And he'd say, fine. I don't control that. He still has 4 votes. So no one individual here, unlike the scenario I just gave you, there's no one individual up here on their own. In fact, no 3 individuals collectively can stop us from appointing the solicitor. I can't individually, or you or anybody else. It requires the board to act, get consensus. Here's the other issue. Let's just say we have a situation where we pass an ordinance and the mayor disagrees with the ordinance and a legal opinion is required, and the solicitor issues a legal opinion. And it's getting close to the end of the term. Well, let's just say the opinion that the solicitor issues, let's use a scenario where I think it's garbage and I'm really upset. And I say to the solicitor, you rat, I don't like your opinion. I'm going to get rid of you. Well, I myself can't get rid of him. The board has to, as a group, make that decision. No one individual up here can have control over that seat and influence over it. You've got to have consensus. And as you all know, it's like herding cats up here sometimes. That same scenario, if the solicitor has to issue an opinion and we're getting close to the end of the term, the mayor can say, you issue a bad opinion that I don't agree with. For example, if you issue an opinion that putting this on the out for referendum and amending the charter, if you issue an opinion that that's legal, which he's already said is legal, I'm not going to reappoint you in 3 months. None of us can do that. The mayor can, and it's not personal to this mayor, but so look, at the end of the day, the removal provisions are not changing one iota. There are communities all across the state. Town of Lincoln, very familiar with Mr. Ward. Last I checked, Lincoln is a fairly well-run community. They have contracts. They have police officers. They have contracts with firefighters. They have contracts with all kinds of things. School teachers, fire departments, Twin Rivers. They do okay. And there's communities, as I said, all across the state that do this. And it works just fine. Just bear with me a moment. If you actually read the charter, here we are, I apologize. Regardless of who appoints that position, okay, the duties of the solicitor, okay? The solicitor shall be the attorney for the city and legal advisor to the mayor, the council, and all other departments. That doesn't change. That doesn't change. And they shall perform such duties appropriate to the office as the mayor and/or city council may require. So the solicitor still has a duty to serve the mayor and the council and the city. That doesn't change, unless you think the people we appoint don't have integrity. But the issue I have, where I've come down on after thinking a lot about this, is as I just described. You know, all 7 of us could be thrilled with an individual, a solicitor, and we don't even get a bite at the apple because the mayor can hold the whole thing up and not put forth their name. And there's no, you know, this notion that somehow the council's not an individual. The council is seven people. So there's no one individual or 2 individuals up here that are going to have any control or influence over a solicitor. Say, we want a legal opinion that says this. They're going to give the legal opinion that they're bound by their code of ethics under the bar. So I just think it's, you know, it's fun to talk about and all that nonsense, but again, no change whatsoever with respect to the removal provisions. That's just a red herring, doesn't exist. The other thing I found interesting, and it got alluded to a little bit here tonight, I heard the mayor on the radio say, for someone like our solicitor, referring to Mr. DeSimone, who's been in politics a very long time, how he has no comment on this and how he feels this is the right thing to do and to bring this imbalance forward is a point that I think needs to be taken note of. Needs to be taken note of. With all due respect, this is not about the solicitor. To suggest that the solicitor should have an opinion on this, other than whether it's legal or not, or whether the drafting is correct or not, I mean, that's not his role. His role is to give us a legal opinion. Are we doing something that's not legally acceptable? Is the language legally proper? And to suggest that he should have an opinion on this because he's been in politics, that's not his job. That's outside of his lane. I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
Mr. President? No, I'm sorry.
I'll just respond to that. I didn't know that.
I'm not asking you, but.
I didn't know that was said on the radio, but I'll just tell you right now. I give legal opinions. I don't set policy. I sat in your seats for 24 years. I'm not a policymaker. I issue decisions based on the law. This is lawful and legal. As far as what I think of it, that's not my role. So I don't know if the mayor said that on the radio, but that's incorrect. There's a lot of things you do I think are great. Personally, some things that she does or you do, it may not be what I would do, but as long as it's legal, that's my job. This is a legal ordinance. It'll go on the ballot if it's voted, and it won't go on the ballot if it's not voted. But it's certainly, in my opinion, legal. And that's really all I got to say. And I do that of every ordinance and resolution. If I feel as though it's not legal, I'll tell you. But most of the time, if I think it's legal, I don't consider I have a policy role in the decision. That's not my role, and it's not any solicitor's role. So that's how I take the job. But if anyone asks me privately, I would tell them, as I have in the past, including the mayor. But when I sit here only as the lawyer for the city. And this is legal, and I've seen a hell of a lot more of these than anyone here. It's legal. But that's all I'm going to say about it. And I don't think it pertains to me. I just think it pertains to what the city wants to do, what the people want to do. So other than that, that's it.
Thank you. You all set, Councilman?
Oh, yes. David.
Councilman Susi.
Yeah, I just want to, again, echo what I said last month, and my sole thing on this thing is that it takes away, right now, a situation where the administration and the council work together. They have to, because the mayor appoints someone that they want to be solicitor. The council then approves or doesn't approve. I agree, Jim. Nothing else changes. You're right. All the provisions stay the same. But my trouble is that I don't see the necessity of taking that role that the administration currently has, or this administration or any administration, away. Do other towns do it? God bless them. I mean, apparently they do. There's many of them that do, many of them that don't. We have a system that I think is a check and balance to some degree, in that we both have a say in who becomes our city solicitor. And I did say it last month. I think that this administration or any administration also works a heck of a lot closer and a lot more often with their solicitors than we do. And I think they have a very good cause for being able to pick that person. And again, the removal provisions don't change. So if we don't like them or something happens down the line, I mean, we make those changes. But right now we have a good situation where we have the administration giving a name, we approve that name, they work together. If it doesn't work out, then it starts over again. But at least the administration has a role in that, in the appointments of a solicitor, and I think that's important. Does it work in other towns? I mean, I know it's different, but I think in Woonsocket, it certainly served itself well. Knowing that there were some issues in the past, God bless. But I think that it's important that the administration who works with the solicitor has a say in who that person is. We are taking it. You're right. The only thing we're doing would be taking that away, and you're right. And I don't think that's proper. That's my opinion. Yep.
Thank you.
Council President?
Councilman Ward.
Several years ago, the city had issue in our financial situation to consider, many people supported, creating an appointed school committee in the hope that it would create a level of accountability to the city through its administration and council to have a better, more effective operation of a school department. And it wasn't something that the council decided to do. It was something that a charter commission asked to have put on a ballot based upon what they saw, in order for the people, based upon what they saw going on in the community related to the relationship of the school department with the city, make a decision about how they felt things should move, and they chose to move towards an appointed school committee. Several years later, after watching it in place and how it played out, the question was put back before the voters, the people who are the ones with the real power. What we do here is not about power. What we do is offer power to the people to make choices. And then they saw the effect of the choice they had made, and using their power, reversed it. This is the same thing. The Home Rule section of our state constitution says it is the intention of this article to grant and confirm to the people of every city and town in the state the right of self-government in all local matters. The Section 2 says every city and town shall have the power at any time to adopt a charter, amend its charter, enact and amend local laws relating to its property, affairs, and government not inconsistent with this Constitution and laws enacted by the General Assembly. Further on, it says that the legislative body of any city, that's us, may propose amendments to a charter, which amendments shall be submitted for approval in the same manner as provided in this article for the adoption of a charter, except that the same may be submitted in a special election and provided further. In any case, it is the legislative body's ability to propose amendments, not that we make. We're not doing anything illegal. We're not creating anything. We're not taking anything away. We're taking a question and we're putting it before the people, and the people who watch us month after month after month evaluate their sense of how we are operating under our structure and make a decision, and they let us know what that decision is. And all this does is put the question before them so that they can evaluate this operation that we call the City of Woonsocket and tell us how they feel and decide for us. There is no balance of power in a choice of a solicitor, because if that were the case, that everything that happened before this charter was amended to deal with the appointment of the solicitor would have had an imbalance of power tilted towards the mayor, because before this change that has us ratifying an appointment, the mayor had a solicitor that simply worked at the will of the mayor, at the pleasure of the mayor. I heard no one complain about an imbalance of power, a lack of ability to work with a solicitor, because a solicitor, as is pointed out in our charter, is not accountable to the mayor or accountable to the council in adopting standards decisions based upon their demands. We make requests, we ask questions, we look for answers, but ultimately the solicitor is accountable to the law. That's all. Whether the solicitor is appointed by a council, is appointed by a mayor, is appointed with a ratification vote, the solicitor still responds to the interests of the city under the law. Any situation, and they all exist in this state. There are communities where the mayor appoints a solicitor. There are communities where the mayor appoints a solicitor but subject to ratification. And as Councilman Canoyer pointed out, there are many, many communities where the council makes a selection of the solicitor. And that solicitor is still required to work with the administration, because virtually uniformly across all charters is the statement that the solicitor shall be the advisor to a mayor, the town administrator, the town manager, a city or town council, all of the departments, all of the boards. That's their job, within the confines of expressing opinions and making decisions about questions of law, that they respond under the law. I'm not going to get into this argument over balance of power, because it doesn't exist here. There is no power that comes to us from appointing a solicitor. The only power comes in the fact that if we get the good solicitor, that solicitor will give us opinions based upon facts and law and will guide us when someone challenges what we do, or in the case of Narragansett Electric, sues us because they claim we did something wrong. And someone, either the solicitor or someone appointed by the solicitor to defend us, who specializes in those matters, will have to go defend the city's position, assuming that the city's position is right. Or at least right enough within the confines of the law that it can be defended, and that's never to presume that everything can be defended. But this question, again, comes out of issues that have arisen over time, arguments that have been had among the various segments of government here, and certain people feel that it's appropriate to put the question to the people who make the decisions, who are ultimately the people who vote in this city. That's all I think this should do, And I don't think there is really any other legal issue associated with it except this council is exercising its authority under the state constitution and the city charter to put a question before the people and let the people make the decision about whether they think it's appropriate or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Council President?
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
So I stand by my previous opinion on this, where I do understand that other municipalities might be working differently, and as Councilman Conoyer said, it works fine, just fine for them. But this also has been working just fine for us for the most part, and it's a process that we have in place where the consensus is not. It's still what wins. You know, the mayor will appoint, and we still have a body that decides whether it's getting approved or is not getting approved. Whether it is, I think it needs to be, the participation needs to be from each party on both ends. And I think this would, maybe we don't call it a shifting of power, call it a shifting of responsibility, but there's always a sense of, there's always a specific responsibility for anyone who is going to be, whether it is interviewing for any kind of position in anything, to say there isn't any. I understand the part of it's not a balance of that the solicitor is going to be definitely working for one and or the other, but picking that person, picking the right person that would work. That's the system we have now, and it's brought us our solicitor, you know, which I think, you know, I think he does a great job, and he stays within the law, but it's what's with us, and it's been working for us. So if switching it in just that one end for us to just be able to appoint and eliminate the administration that's going to be working the most hours with, most likely with the solicitor, I don't agree with that. And I do understand that we put the question out to the community, but a lot of times these questions don't come with all the details and information that we have on our end on what the actual responsibilities and the work that entails working with the solicitor.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. President.
Councilman Gillette.
Councilman Conoyer, obviously the entire council didn't listen to every word of your great presentation. What I'm talking about is, at the end of a term, especially at the end of a term, if a city solicitor is not kowtowing to a mayor, then the mayor can use that position of not reinstating that city solicitor as an appointment once the new term starts. And the council doesn't have boo to say about it, regardless of whether or not we like the current city solicitor. That is a motivating factor in itself. And if you want to totally ignore that, that's up to you. I think it's wrong. And I want to thank Councilman Ward also for a great presentation. This is not something that I put on a docket just for the hell of it. Something that's been on my mind for a long time, as I said, at the last council meeting. And I really believe that this is the right way to go. I, for one, have trust in the voters of the city of Woonsocket. And I will follow whatever they decide to do on this matter because of their votes. I will follow their lead. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Council President?
Mayor?
So first of all, I just want to make it clear, when I was referring to the solicitor, yes, a solicitor interprets the law, but a solicitor also advises. And the solicitor can advise as to whether or not he thinks, I'm not talking about this piece of legislation. I understand the legislation brings it to the people to vote. But I find it interesting, what is the language that would be going on the ballot? What is the question, Councilman Gillette?
It's on the legislation.
What is it?
You have a copy of the legislation?
Does it state to the public
You have a
that
copy of
does
the
it state
legislation?
does
Look
it
at it.
I have the floor. Does it state to the public that the mayor, no matter who the mayor is excluded from having any input as to who the solicitor is? Or is it crafted in such a way to try to capitalize on the constituents that we represent and not give a clear understanding of exactly what they're voting on? I think that's more like the way it is presented by you or whoever crafted this for you. But I will say this. Councilman Canoyer states all the different municipalities who have the city councils or town councils appointing the city solicitor with no input from the executive branch of government. We know that it works the way it does because, as the mayor myself, I put forward a solicitor and the city council denied the appointment of that solicitor. Exactly what the two councilors are speaking of, having that balance in place. I will also mention, do you know, Councilman Gillette, how many cities are in the state of Rhode Island?
That have a city solicitor appointed by the council? Yes, 26.
So what does that tell you? How many cities do we have? I'll tell you, okay? So there are cities and there are towns. And unless my information is not quite accurate, in the state of Rhode Island, there are 8 cities and 31 towns. 7 of the 8 cities are governed by a mayor. Newport has a council/city manager. Out of those 7 cities governed by the mayor, including Woonsocket, every mayor appoints the city solicitor. So the list that Councilman Canoyer refers to are towns with managers, towns, with administrators. And in addition to that, there are 3 towns in Rhode Island with a mayor: Cumberland, Johnston, and North Providence. Each of these towns' mayor also appoints the solicitor or has input into the appointment of the solicitor. So there's a reason for that. So I'm not talking Lincoln, Barrington, East Greenwich. I'm talking about the cities in the tops. We're the 6th largest city in the state of Rhode Island. Everyone above us is a city. And they all have the dual branches of government who participate in the appointment of the solicitor. But that wasn't mentioned. But I think it's important for the constituents of this city to understand that. And also, I will make point of, I'm only one person, it takes 5 people, we're not changing the resolution that the mayor could put forward or the ordinance that the council can put forward. But keep in mind, and I'm not talking about this solicitor, I'm not talking about this council. When a council is seated and you have 5 people who generally think and move in the same direction, and a city solicitor knows that his or her particular job is based on those counselors and satisfying those counselors, that's when there is a problem. And that is why we need a balance in government. And that legislation that you have put forward removes the balance in government. And I heard the comment you made, and I'm not sure who you were referring to when you complimented Councilman Knoyer and then stated clearly people, not every councilor was listening to what he said. Unless I misinterpreted what you said, you're basically insulting a city councilor, or more than one, because they're not agreeing with you.
So, Mayor.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Councilman Knoyer.
Council President, so since we're talking about insulting, with all due respect, let's not insult the intelligence of our residents. Here's what the question says. Shall the City of Woonsocket Home Rule Charter, Chapter 10, entitled Administrative Departments, yada, yada, be amended to change the authorization for appointment of the City Solicitor from appointment by the mayor to appointment by the City Council? I don't know how much more clear you can be. So I'm not sure what that argument was all about. Again, I think I have faith in our residents. I'm not going to insult their intelligence that they can't understand the words from appointment by the mayor to appointment by the City Council. That's number one. Number two, again, as I said, there's a number, and I don't care if it's 26 or 20 or whatever, but there's more than half of the cities, of the towns in the state of Rhode Island that the City Council, not the elected administrator, not the appointed manager, etc., where the town, where the council appoints the solicitor. Yes, there are other communities such as ours where it's a mix. But again, the big issue is, as we roll into the end of any term, the mayor, and we had that, quite frankly, we had to delay the appointment the last time. It got delayed. Because one individual is left with all that power to basically say, again, if we think this guy over here is doing a great job, they can say, no, I don't like the fact that you drafted something. I'm not going to reappoint you. And we'll never have an opportunity to even have a vote on it. Whereas if I don't like this, what happened, and I'm going to try to blame the solicitor for doing his job in terms of drafting something requested by duly elected members of the City Council, there's not a darn thing I can do about it because there's 6 other members up here. So I think, and with respect to, you're right, not everybody gets all the information. The residents don't get all the information, and sometimes they're given misinformation, such as that we're taking away removal provisions when we're not. And again, yes, the solicitor can be an advisor. I think he even said that. If he speaks to people individually, he'll give his opinions. But when he sits in that chair and he's dealing with ordinances, his job is simply to tell us the law as he knows it. It's not to give opinions on policy. And that's what was said, that somehow, again, it should be taken note of. And I'm going to read it just to be real clear again. For someone like our solicitor who has been in politics a very long time, how he has no comment on this and how he feels this is the right thing to do. I'm not sure how the mayor knows what the solicitor feels on this. He's never told us. But how he feels this is the right thing to do, and to bring this imbalance forward is a point that I think needs to be taken note of. He's bringing this imbalance forward. He's got nothing to do with this. His name isn't on this. This is Councilman Gillette and Councilman Ward. And to make a statement like that is just, again, it reinforces to me why we need to do this. So
I defend that statement.
I know you do.
Because he can advise, and he didn't, and how he doesn't have an opinion on this is very questionable to me.
Okay.
Because he has been in government for a very long time, and he understands the importance of having balance in government. And that is why I said that.
And that's why we have communities all over the state doing it both ways.
Not cities.
Council President.
So, Mayor, let me just ask, because this has been running around in my head. Let's say nothing changes. Are you going to recommend him for appointment next term?
He already indicated to me that he doesn't want to be reappointed. So
No, I'm asking you, would you put his name forward for reappointment if he was,
If he has interest in staying,
so you would put his name forward for reappointment?
I would consider putting his name forward.
No,
I just said, you're not going to make me tell you yes or no. I don't know what happens between now and December.
Well, I understand, but right now, we're talking about the current. I think that the council is overwhelmingly satisfied with his performance.
You're overwhelmingly satisfied, but you're not here every day, and you don't understand what the administration needs for legal counsel, if we have it available to us, et cetera. I'm not going to get into this about our city
Mayor, let me
solicitor.
finish my sentence. The council, not our interpretation of the administration, what I was saying is the council is overwhelmingly satisfied with the solicitor's performance. The council.
The council.
The council. If we had the provision to reappoint the council, I mean the solicitor, this council, as it sits today, which may be very different in December, this council may appoint him. If this 7 people, I would feel very, very comfortable in thinking that there would be enough support to reassign or reappoint the solicitor as the city solicitor. If nothing changes, I'm asking you, because I know you asked Councilman Gillette at another meeting, did I ever put forth legislation to remove the solicitor? And the answer is no. But I will tell you, you have spoken to me about removing the solicitor.
I have spoken to, see, I don't want it, you're dragging me into a conversation, and then I'm going to defend the administration. So you want to have a council that appoints a solicitor, and then you all go off to work every day at your regular jobs, and I understand you're part-timers, but we're here every day. We need a solicitor that's in the building. I don't need a solicitor who works 2 hours a day. So if you want me to appoint a solicitor that wants to work 2 hours a day, I would not support that. But what you're doing is you're putting the power potentially in the hands of the council, where you can appoint a solicitor. That solicitor can basically ignore the mayor, ignore the administration, and just do the work of the council, because the council appoints the solicitor. And as long as you're getting the attention that you need from a solicitor, then you'd be happy and you'd have no reason to remove somebody. That is not how government should be working. And if you really wanted to do something that made more sense, you would do exactly what the solicitor said, which is a city solicitor cannot serve 2 masters. There should be somebody who represents the city council, and there should be somebody who represents the administration. You don't even want to do that. You want to put all the power in the hands of the city council and then say to us, this is your solicitor, good luck, have at it. And then if we don't have representation, what are we supposed to do? It's no secret. It's no secret in this city that there are 5 city councilors who generally march to the same step.
Mayor,
okay?
Mayor, listen.
You open the door.
Okay, Mayor, it's time that you get away from the personal attacks.
I'm not
okay?
getting, that's not personal.
You are. I'm keeping this high level.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't be asking if I would appoint somebody in public.
I'm trying to prove the point, Mayor, that come election time,
yes,
you will have unquestionable authority about his future.
If the
in the city of
administration,
Woonsocket.
yes, and if the administration is not pleased with the work of a current solicitor, then we collectively need to choose a solicitor, just like we did in the past. The council sat with the solicitor that was that was in consideration for appointment, had a conversation, made you feel comfortable, and everything was fine. It would be the same thing. Any administration that's going to put forward a solicitor, the council needs to be comfortable with them also, but so does the administration. This is throwing a total imbalance into that equation.
Okay, thank you.
And if you were the mayor, you would not have the position that you have right now. You would want to make certain that you had a solicitor at your beck and call for everything you needed as the mayor of the sixth largest community in the state of Rhode Island. You would need to have that. Your administration would need to have that. It's important.
Okay.
Council President.
Councilman Ward.
Just want to address the issue that Councilman Canoia brought up related to the radio comment about the solicitor should have an opinion about this, and so the mayor had expressed the opinion that the solicitor should have an opinion about this. The solicitor has expressed his opinion about this, because the only opinion he's allowed to express here is whether or not an ordinance placed on an agenda to ask the people to vote on a question before them related to our charter is a legal act. And it is, within our charter and within the state constitution. That's all we're doing here. He has expressed an opinion. If he expressed an opinion beyond that, about his personal belief about this question, I would start to question his ability to be our solicitor, because that's not his role. He doesn't live in the city. He's an employee of the city. His job is to advise and interpret the law as it relates to our authority to put a question on a ballot using an ordinance in conjunction with the rules established in our charter and the state constitution. So the solicitor has expressed every opinion he's allowed to express on this matter. I thank him for it, and I thank him for limiting himself to only that opinion he's allowed to express. Other than that, I don't know what else there is to do except vote on the question.
Council President, I just have one.
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
So my concern with the way that is worded, it says that it would be changing from the appointment from the mayor to the city council, but the whole appointment doesn't come from the mayor at the moment. It comes from the mayor and the approval of the city council. So if I read that question and I don't know what's happening here, I'm going to think it's just, oh, the mayor's the only one that appoints, and now it's just going to be, it's just changing from mayor to city council. And the way that we're doing it right now, if we were to change it, then it probably should be the city council appoints, but then the mayor becomes the person that says it's approved or not approved. And you know, if we're saying that we're changing it from one to the other, it's not really it's not as detailed enough in the question. And I know it says, I heard it when you read it, that it says it changes from the appointment of the.
You need to look at Exhibit A.
Yeah, is that exhibit going to be on the ballot? Because my thing is about the information to the people that are going to make the decision, you know? So it would need to change. If it's not going to be on the ballot, I mean, we see it, but if it's not going to be on the ballot, people aren't going to be as informed.
Well, I think the question, I mean, I've seen some of these ballot questions where they get so wordy that then there's no understanding it. I think it's straightforward. It's changes from the appointment by the mayor to appointment by the city council.
There's one key element that changes that is not listed there, where is that at the moment the mayor appoints, but we have, you know, a final say. Now, if we appoint, there is just we appoint and that's it, and there's no final say from the administration.
Right.
And that's not made clear in the ballot. And that, I believe, to people, that would matter, you know, whether you're taking away that balance or not. Yeah.
Okay.
So that if there's a way of clarifying that, if you're going to put it on the ballot, if there's a way of clarifying that the way that it is, I just don't think it's complete enough.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
Mr. President, and that would be easy enough. I mean, you could put it, you know, where the mayor now makes appointment with the full, acceptance of the council would now change to explain what it would be. Just
You would
the
need to
appointment by the
put
council.
solely by the council.
Because it's a double-edged change, you know?
Well, if you want to offer
not
an
gonna word it.
amendment to the,
Somebody smarter than me can put that wording in, so, yeah.
well, I'm good with the wording. So if there's a change that needs to be made, if you want to offer an amendment,
I guess, again, I might not be as great with the wording, but.
but this is going to be on the ballot, so it's got to be perfect.
No, I know. You're putting me, there's a little pressure now. But I think that it's important to put the key element would be going from appointed and approved by the council to solely appointed by the city council. Because that's really what's happening.
That makes more sense.
So, all right, so how would it be worded?
Okay, my
would
battery's
be-
dying and
Be amended to change the authorization for appointment of the city solicitor from appointment by the mayor.
from appointment and approved by the city council to solely appointed by the city council.
But so you're taking the word mayor completely out of that?
No, and because the way the changes we're going to be making, the mayor wouldn't have.
Right, but I'm saying,
I think I can, let's see.
So it's appointed, going from appointed by the mayor
And then approved by.
and then approved by the city council to solely appointed by the city council with no need of approval by the mayor.
Solicitor, is that a, well, we have a motion made by Councilwoman Gonzalez,
I'll second that.
seconded by Councilman Susi. So can you listen to this amendment and see if it's,
Go ahead.
Okay. So it would go from appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council to solely appointed by the city council with no need of approval of the mayor.
So
There might be better words to put that, but.
Yeah, I think that, and I looked at this question, and I went over it with Assistant Solicitor Waslick in preparation for tonight's meeting. And I think the question that's here is the clearest question, because what it's doing is it's simply stating to the public that you're taking the authorization of appointment of the solicitor from the mayor to the city council. So, sometimes when you put more words into it,
Yeah,
it
but
confuses people.
but it doesn't give the complete picture. It doesn't give a complete. It's simple, but it's not a complete picture. They don't understand if that happened, and there was still a balance, then I could understand that. But you're completely removing the voice of the administration in the appointment. So I think that for people to make a well-informed decision, that is a key element that needs to be known by people.
And I understand your position. I just, looking at the question, I think it's very simple and clear that the
You don't
appointment-
get that from that question.
I do. It's just my opinion. I think legally, it's.
You get it because you know.
Yeah, but-
You get it because you understand that.
Yeah, and you know the background.
But it is changing. Again, the mayor has a say, right? And the solicitor right now. So,
Right, well, according to the question.
and the council, we both have a say right now.
Yeah, but according to the
One's going
question,
away.
it says, be amended to change the authorization for appointment of the city solicitor from appointment by the mayor to appointment by the city council.
But even that is not completely correct, because it's not just from the mayor. Right now, it's from the mayor, she appoints, and we approve. So that's not even the right, that's not even the right system that we use currently. So if you're just saying from the mayor to the city council, it sounds simple and, it's simplistic, but it's not even factual in the way that we operate right now.
Well, right now, the way you operate is the solicitor is appointed by the mayor, subject to approval by resolution of the city council.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
that's
so
in the
those are the wordings that probably would fit better in the amendments.
So, I mean, I think it's clear, but let me just see something here.
So
How about if, just for, what if we said appointment by the mayor, subject to approval by the city council,
from that,
to appointment by the city council?
with no approval, I think it's important.
But I'm not
put
going to
with
start, no, because
approval.
that's not really
Only
part
a
of.
few more words.
Yeah, no, but yeah, you can say that. I'm just saying, I'm trying to find something that I could support.
No, I think that.
So I think that if we can find the wording to say appoint, no, go ahead. I'm looking for
How about this? Will this help?
microphone.
Will this help you? To the council president's point, we change it to the authorization for appointment of the city solicitor from appointment by the city council, subject to approval from the council, to appointment.
You meant
to-
the mayor.
No, you have city council
You meant the
twice
mayor,
there.
yeah.
Okay, let me just, I'm sorry. Appointment, let's see, authorization of the appointment of the city solicitor from appointment by the mayor, subject to approval from the city council, to the appointment solely by the city council.
Okay, that, I think that,
I mean, you could do that if you wanted to.
yeah, I think,
So really what you're doing is after the word mayor in the last line, you're inserting subject to approval by city council.
Solely, yeah.
yes,
I would
because
say
it's going from that
That's
to a
what you're doing.
sole.
And then
approval.
it would say
To
appointment by the city
Solely.
council.
I would say
Not
solely
solely.
by the city council.
Makes it clearer.
All right.
To the city, to appointment solely by the city council.
So you want to change your amendment to that?
Yes.
So you can remove your second,
Yes, I'll remove my second.
make the new amendment.
Okay, do I have to read it
so,
exactly? Okay, so, yes, I,
Valerie
this one,
Gonzalez.
I, Valerie Gonzalez.
No.
yes. Yeah, so I want to put an amendment that the wording
Let's just say the wording that we just discussed.
that we just discussed would be what is on the ballot instead of what was previously submitted.
So we have a motion to amend by Councilwoman Gonzalez, seconded by Councilman Susi. Discussion on the amendment. So for clarity, one second, Councilman Gillette, I just want to be, for clarity, it would be the authorization for appointment of the city solicitor from appointment by the mayor, subject to, is it ratification or approval by the city council, to solely by the city council.
To appointment solely by
To
the city
appointment solely.
Okay. All right, Councilman Gillette.
Thank you. Mr. City Solicitor, when is the deadline for this legislation to be able to go in so that it can be on the ballot?
Tonight. We have to pass it tonight and then pass it again at the next meeting. The deadline is August 10th. So, so instead of the word solely,
Yeah, I don't like the word solely, and that's going to keep me from supporting it.
I don't think the word solely fits, because if you look at Exhibit A, it's going to be, shall be appointed by resolution of the city council. So if you could insert that part, the first part, but instead of putting the word solely next to the appointment, I would just put to appoint it by the city council via
See,
resolution
but then
or by resolution.
we're back to where I think it's important that people know that the administration will not be involved in that. So if you can think of another word, but I think that end result, it's important that people know the administration is not going to be involved.
Yeah, well, I mean, I looked at it, I thought it was clear the way it is, because you're taking the appointment away from the mayor to the city council. Other than that, you're not changing anything.
Well,
You're not changing seriously, you're not changing anything in the entire part of the charter. You're just taking that part out.
No, but for me is informing the people properly. And, you know, I don't know why the word solely is not, it's not a, you know, a good, nobody has a good consensus on it but it's really what we're doing. That's exactly what's happening. So I don't know what the issue is with the word, because it really describes what's going to happen.
We were so close.
Yeah, I don't think it sounds cumbersome with the solely, so.
Why not?
Let's do adjectives.
With these ballot questions, you're trying
Exclusively?
to keep it simple,
Yeah.
Yeah.
concise.
But we're talking about one word now. Now we're at one word difference, you know, so we can use exclusively. But I think that's
You know what?
the important element.
Put exclusively.
Exclusively?
Sure.
Only?
The problem with the word exclusively is, exclusively is,
Talk into the mic, please.
yeah, it's true. I'm just thinking out loud, I may have I just don't like the word exclusively or
Is there a legal reason? Like, it's not a legal reason, right? Like,
Entirely.
for-
Entirely is a synonym for
Enti-
solely.
Hey, Mike?
I wasn't sure.
Mike,
Council President, can I ask the manager from the Board of Canvassers?
Is it Mike here?
Yeah, so Mike, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Okay.
When this stuff goes out, are you familiar with this ordinance
Yes.
and the Exhibit A?
Yes.
Is that going to be published anywhere?
I believe part of the ordinance, we do have to do advertising. The Board of Canvassers
That'll
has
all
to
be
do
out
it.
there?
Yep.
Yeah.
So the board, one of my recommendations to the board is also going to be maybe put in Exhibit A in the polling booths, so all voters will be able to view it.
Yeah, you know what, then I'm good the way it is. I don't mean to be, at some point, we gotta have a little faith in our electorate. They're gonna have all of this information well in advance and likely at the booth, correct?
Yes.
So, I'm good.
And I just want to reiterate, Councilwoman, I looked at this language, since the last meeting, and this was as clear as I could come up with. Really there was no other hidden agenda. I think it's pretty clear. But I understand, that you have different views, but I just want you to know, I sincerely think that this language is very clear. And like Mike said, they'll have the Exhibit A, within the polling station and through advertisements. When you start adding more words, you make it unclear. That's the point. So what you're trying to do, you may be undoing is the point I'm
But you could also go too unclear. It can go both ways. And when people are voting, I've worked the polls. That didn't sound right. But I've been working at I volunteered at the polling stations. And when people get there, they just want to get in, get their vote, and get out.
And that's why the smaller the question, the more concise the question. the better.
Yes, but we're not looking at a whole paragraph. We're just looking at a few definitive words that would clarify what is actually happening.
well, we have a motion to amend. We have a second, a
think we
motion
got
made by
with-
Councilwoman Gonzalez, seconded by Councilman Susi, to amend the question that would be on the ballot. Madam Clerk, let's do a roll call on the amendment.
Councilman Canoia?
No.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
No.
Councilman Susi?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
No.
President Gendron?
No. And the amendment fails on a 4-2 vote. On the main motion as amended, the main motion, comments. Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoia?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
No.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susi?
No.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron?
Yes, and 22036 is approved 4-2. First passage.
22037, authorization to sell the property located at 419 North Main Street, also known as Plot 20, Lot 129, Woonsocket, Rhode Island.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Gillette. Comments? So Solicitor, I had contacted you about my concerns with this. I'm going to be looking for a tabling motion tonight to, for the reason that the land that we're requiring it to be merged to is owned by an LLC, which I know, my understanding is it's not an active LLC. It's not in good standing.
That's correct. I mean, it could be cured, I guess. I don't know why it's not active, but it could be cured. But
Sure.
that was the information we had. That's why we put it in an individual's name, but we could look into it further.
So what concerns me is that if we authorize the sale of this property to the individual and the home that's on the adjacent lot is in the LLC name, the two can never be merged, and that is conditional upon this resolution. So what I'd like to say is that if I can get it support for tabling, that it would be tabled until the property owner can rectify his LLC or change the house into his personal name, then we'll sell it to him personally.
That's prudent.
Okay.
Motion to table?
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Ward and Gillette to table 22037. Roll call, Madam Clerk, on the tabling, please.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette? Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes, and 22037 is tabled 5-0.
22038, authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a one-year lease extension with Aging Well, Inc. for property known as Assessors Plat 13, Lot 104, 84 Social Street.
Motion to pass.
Motion made by
Second.
Councilman Gillette, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments?
Council President,
Councilman Canoyer.
this is the lease for the, to Aging Well for the senior center. So I'd like to make an amendment to section 1 to change it to enter into a 3 instead of a 3-year lease. So change the 1 to 3, and then at the end, say provided that such lease shall be signed and extended by no later than July 31st, 2022.
Motion made to amend by Councilman Canoyer, seconded by the chair. Comments on the amendment?
Mr. President, at the title, you should also amend the title into a 3-year lease.
Oh, yeah.
So moved.
So included in that is the titling too.
Yep.
On the amendment, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman
President?
Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
I'll abstain because I didn't hear it.
Just amending it from 1 year to 3 years.
Okay. Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes, and on the main motion as amended, comments? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes, and 22038 is approved 6-0 as amended.
28039, an ordinance to designate use and budget for a portion of the city's Woonsocket allotment of American Rescue Plan Act funds.
And 22039 dies for lack of a motion. 22040, Madam Clerk.
22040, authorizing the Woonsocket City Council President or the Mayor to execute the collective bargaining agreement by and between the City of Woonsocket and the New England Police Benevolent Association, Inc.
Motion approved?
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Canoyer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilman Gillette?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes, and 22040 is approved. First passage, 6-0.
22R85, appointing Anthony J. Gabriel as clerk of the Board of Canvassers and Registration of the City of Woonsocket.
Motion approved?
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez. Comments? Just for clarity, we appointed Mr. Gabriel a few weeks back as a member of the Board of Canvassers, and there was the need to amend that to appointing him as clerk of the Board of Canvassers. So this is the same individual, just being appointed to one of the specific member spots. So any other questions? We do have Mr. Narducci here. Hearing none, roll call. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22R85 is approved, 6-0.
22R86, authorizing the cancellation of certain taxes.
Approve. Second.
Motion made by Councilman Gillette, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments?
Council President.
Councilman Ward.
Council President, and for the public's interest, this is the item I made reference to earlier today, a fact that was known about a year ago related to the 2019 charge having to do with the closing documents associated with the transfer of the property that is currently Rise Prep Memorial Academy that we will have to refund Rise for $66,133.19.
Thank you, Councilman Ward. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22R86 is approved, 6-0.
22R87, granted permission to use city property.
Motion made by Councilman Gillette, seconded by Councilman Canoyer. Comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22R87 is approved, 6-0.
22R88, granted permission to use city property.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Canoyer. Comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22R88 is approved, 6-0.
22R89, establishing the city council meeting dates and agenda deadlines for calendar year 2022.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward, seconded by Councilman Canoyer. Comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22R89 is approved, 6-0.
22R90, authorizing the mayor to sign and enter into an agreement with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank for up to $525,000 for drinking water loan active for the replacement of lead service lines.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Councilman Susi,
Second?
seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez. Comments?
Council President,
Councilman Canoyer.
excuse me. My first question is, which lead lines are these going to be addressing?
Residential.
Oh, they're just residential?
Yeah.
And how will those residential lines be selected?
Well,
Is it all of them, or?
Well, no, I don't think you'd have, there's not enough money to do all of them, but
Yeah.
you'd have to apply if you're interested as the homeowner.
Okay,
Then there'd be some type of a,
a process that, okay, no,
Process.
that's fine. I didn't know if it was like city lines and but it's
So at this point, to my knowledge, from what I've been told, there are no city lines per se.
Right.
It's all from the city line to the residence.
into the property, I got it.
To the property.
Yep.
So we're
Okay.
looking to abate, to get rid of all of those.
Okay,
As to who gets selected, I guess you have first come, first serve. Or,
all right, so there'll be a process, all right. And then the second question is, on the memo dated June 23rd from Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, in the first paragraph, it says, Dear Mayor Baldelli Hunt, I'm pleased to inform you that the Board of Directors, blah, blah, blah. But then the last sentence, it says, subject to the terms of this letter and the closing documents, the bank will forgive the loan in its entirety, which is a great thing. So it sounds like they're going to give us a loan, but it's a forgivable loan, and we don't have to pay it back. But then when I read through the terms and conditions, I don't see anything, it doesn't say anything about the loan forgiveness. It talks about the loan agreement, the amortization, final maturity, prepayments.
that would be for the solicitor to make sure that it's forgiven.
So,
But, go ahead.
so I did.
Director Chamberlain?
I did call Infrastructure Bank today because I read the same thing.
You had the same
that
question.
You did, and yeah, and she did point to that sentence that says, subject to the terms, the bank will forgive the loan in its entirety. So that's
Okay.
That's not my words.
What's that?
That's not my words.
Oh, yeah, no, this is, so we just need to make sure that, in fact, the terms and conditions of this debt issuance, there'll be legal documents, you're right. It's going to have something in there, an explicit provision that the debt will be, is forgiven.
Okay, so we are going to have bond counsel, so
Yeah.
I'll have the bond counsel verify that.
Yeah, so this, I would just say that, this is subject to this being,
Right.
because we don't like to take on debt in this city, and Steve will tell us that all the
No,
time.
I won't sign it.
Yep.
I mean, the mayor can sign it or whoever else, but I
Yeah.
will not sign it.
Okay, so we just got to make sure that ultimately the operative documents, this is this is a memo at this point, but the actual underlying prospectus and everything else is,
Right,
okay,
I'll get bond counsel's
perfect.
opinion.
Thank you.
to confirm.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I would just like to notify the public, because I've spoken to several residents and I've spoken to Director D'Agostino. He had told me that this was hopefully coming, and I want to make sure that the residents know that there will be an application process which will be set up, but don't wait, because when it's gone, it'll be like the last time. If you miss out, you do not get your water lines changed, so please be aware of that. Any other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And 22R90 is approved, 6-0.
22R91, authorizing the Director of Public Works to construct an office building and a maintenance facility on Plat 31, Lot 5, for the purpose of supporting the new drinking water treatment plant and the Woonsocket Water Division employees.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments?
So, I put this on for informational purposes only at this point.
Okay.
But as you know, we acquired this piece of land, which is almost 4 acres. We've acquired a piece abutting it, which is about 5, so it's a total of 9. This infrastructure, this building, if you will, this facility, would be mostly on, give me, as the legislation reads, it would be on, we acquired 31-5 and 31-10. So most of this facility would be actually on the piece we acquired a couple of years ago. But just to give you some type, something to go on, I'm looking into a building approximately 100 by 40 or 50, with 2 or 3 bays for the outside crew. The rest would be obviously a little smaller for just the office personnel. And everybody would be housed in one area. It would be set back further enough, probably 250 feet off Roy Avenue. So it's not like it's, intrusive. And it abuts our existing water treatment facility, which is right up the street, which is, 18 acres or 20, whatever that was. But, so we own that entire tract of property. So,
And the existing garage that
Yeah.
you had taken me to see, is that going to be used in conjunction with
Storage.
this? Just storage?
that would be simply storage, like hydrants, meters, valves.
But this will be in proximity to that building?
Oh, absolutely. The building on this legislation would be to the left of that. We're actually preparing the ground. We removed all the stumps and material that can, degrade over time. We're just stabilizing the entire area right now.
So, Director, I am very supportive of this. I think it's a great idea. When we toured the property, I thought it was a good idea then. So I obviously will support this, but I'm just concerned about the cost. Can this come back to us with?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But and to give you a few more specifics, I've discussed with a local architect, a metal building.
Yes.
On a slab, we're not looking for Taj Mahal here. We're looking for durability, maintenance, low cost, using monies that we already have in our enterprise fund. And, you know, obviously keep the budget down. That's why we're doing a lot of the site work in-house. We have Gentes there actually doing the excavation, but we're using all our materials from the curb yard that we stored over time. When we ripped up roads, we crushed it, and we're using that material to balance the site, so there's no cost on material. We're just paying for equipment right now, really. So we're preparing an entire site. We haven't outsourced anything except the equipment.
Okay. So, well, I'll see, any other questions or comments from
Council President.
Councilman Ward.
Source of funding for this, ratepayers, or as an eligible expense, would you go to ARPA funds?
I don't think we'll need ARPA funds. I think this could be done, you know, when our account, you know, they're strong at this point, and hopefully they remain like that.
But that's a $500,000 burden we're putting on the ratepayers that we could avoid by using ARPA funds.
What do you mean? Are you being sarcastic?
I'm not. I'm repeating what was said earlier this evening.
We have funds in an account, is what the director is saying. So we all caught your snide comment,
But that is ratepayer account, I mean, money, right?
Yes, of course.
we're not raising the rate to pay for a building. There's a
No,
difference.
but it is ratepayer money.
You know what? Keep your games to yourself.
Mayor, once again, why do you get personal? It's with.
Why do you do that?
No.
You know the funds are in the account to
It's
use for
just
things like this.
rhetorical argument.
Councilman Ward was
Mayor,
being
please.
a smarty by
Please.
saying that.
No, Mayor, please.
to
Don't-
you,
don't-
okay?
don't start with
give
the
me your
personal.
holier than thou.
No, see, here we go, Mayor. Once again,
Yeah.
trying to have dialogue. You're incapable. You have to make it personal.
No, it's not that.
Yes,
No,
you are.
You're mimicking what I said because I
No.
said we shouldn't raise the rates on the
Mayor,
taxpayers.
Mayor,
That's
stop.
exactly what you're doing.
Mayor.
Don't tell me to stop.
No, I can tell you to stop. This is a council
don't tell
meeting.
me to stop.
Stop.
Councilman, you can use that elsewhere, but you can't use it with me.
I can use it right
Use
here.
it all you want. I know what Councilman Ward was doing, okay?
Mayor.
I'm not an idiot.
Council President.
Mayor, sometimes I wonder.
Yeah.
Council President.
Very nice. I'm glad we have that on the recording.
Unbelievable.
Council President.
Director Gillette, did you have something to say?
I did.
What?
You just talked about.
Use a microphone, please.
You just talked about not having personal comments, and then you just call her an idiot.
I didn't call her an idiot.
Yes, you did.
What?
When did I call her an idiot? When did I call her an idiot? Please.
Council President.
Excuse me, I had the floor.
You've
Councilman
lost
Ward.
control of this meeting.
So I think the point that Councilman Ward was making is
Fact is-
we didn't need to increase.
Wait a minute. He's got the floor.
Oh, I'm
The fact is, when you hear people say things like, oh, it's federal money, it's not our tax dollars. Oh, it's state money, it's not our tax dollars. It's our tax dollars. It's our water rate. Whether it's increasing a water rate to pay for the building or not, it's paid for by the ratepayers, period. I was not being sarcastic as much as pointing out the irony of arguing about an 18-cent tax rate increase, or whatever the differential was, as though that $500,000 represents something onerous that could be covered with ARPA funds. This expense could be covered with ARPA funds. It's approximately the same amount. If you paid for this building with ARPA funds, legally and appropriately, it would mean that there's $500,000 in money left in the water ratepayers reserve for repairs, replacements, upgrades that would prevent future rate increases associated with the aging of the system, needs for replacements of equipment. That's all. So you can't make the argument on the one hand about the small, modest increase in a tax rate that is such a terrible burden that we should put it off for a year, and then on the other hand say, well, we shouldn't do that with the water rates because the water department already has the money. They have the money because we've paid the money and they have reserves. But you're passing up an opportunity to use ARPA funds for a long-term investment, which we all say ARPA funds should be used for, and then accusing me of sarcasm, but I'm not. I'm making a valid comparison saying, first off, this resolution doesn't specify the source of funding, and it should. And then secondly, I think it's a legitimate use of ARPA funds. We've got tens of millions of dollars. $500,000 is not going to burn up the ARPA balance. Just, that was my point. Unfortunately, it was the mayor that made my point earlier this evening on the tax debate and the veto. And by doing so, it led to the opportunity to raise the very same question she raised, is if you don't have to use funds from the general fund, and you can use ARPA funds, and on the other hand, but that was, a lot of that was for one-time expenditures. In this case, we're talking about a building you're going to put up that's going to last 30, 40, 50 years. It's a long-term expenditure that could probably best come from the ARPA funds. And so that was my point, because it didn't specify in the resolution what the source of funding was. I asked, the argument fit, and it's not to ridicule, it's simply to point out how ironic it is. On the one hand, the mayor makes an argument about it in this side of the ledger, but on this side of the ledger, she argues against it. I think she's won the argument against herself. I just asked the question, so I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Council President,
Councilman Canoia.
for the record, you didn't call anybody an idiot.
Thank you.
Number one. Number two, we just passed an ordinance as part of the budget, ordinance number 22023, and that's for the water department, where we're going to collect water sales of $8.3 million and raise over $10 million of, quote, income. If we have ARPA funds available, we didn't have to raise that much. And that's the only point, again, just to beat a dead horse. This is actually more money than we were talking about. We're talking about $489,000 on the tax levy, and it was suggested that we're doing something really bad and evil, and we should be using ARPA funds for that. But we're going to spend over $500,000 and go right to the water fund when we could have used ARPA and not have to raise as much money. That's the only point that was being made. And if that escapes people's minds, I don't know what to tell you. So, Director, again, what's the estimate of the whole project, roughly? And
It's going to be in the vicinity of $1 million, I would say.
It's $1 million, okay. And the source right now is you're looking to take it out of the enterprise fund?
That's, that would be up to you, but yes, that's the direction I was going in. And
Okay.
I totally missed the comment about, I tuned out at that point, to be honest with you.
Wise man.
So I didn't catch what you were trying to say, but
Okay. Well, I think, I'm supportive of the endeavor, Steve, Director.
well, I think this is an opportunity where we can finally put the whole
Yeah, I've been waiting for this since we knocked the old incinerator building down where we used to store these people. We've been paying rent for 5 or 6 years, and this is something we need to get done. The only thing would you have this is as much to protect you as the rest of us, to put in, settle down, put in a not to exceed amendment in here, not to exceed X, or do you want to leave it? I just get a little uncomfortable having it open-ended.
Well, as I said, we're not, you don't even have to support this tonight.
I want to support it.
Okay, this was informational.
Okay.
So I'm reluctant to, I'm hoping it costs $700,000 or $600,000.
Yeah, but
You could set $1 million, and then we could go from there. And then you guys could all pick the funding source or whatever. You collectively, the mayor.
when let me ask you this, and then we'll move it. You're doing construction, excavation work right now.
Yes.
At some point, you're going to get architectural plans drawn, and then you're going to get a bid
Yes.
to have it built. And I think then it makes sense to come back.
Right.
And especially, it's going to be a significant number. And I think then we can deal with the true cost.
Yep.
And the funding source.
Yes.
So.
This was more just so what I'm doing now is not for naught.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
We just don't want to have an open-ended. Yeah.
Right.
We're on the same page.
Yep. So I don't want to start, be developing it as we speak, and then you say, no, we don't want a building there,
Yeah.
So I just don't want to get to that point. I just want to be on the same page.
Yep, and we appreciate the transparency, if you will.
Thank you. But yeah, if you want to put a number, that's fine.
All right, how about we say in section 1, just add an amendment, let's say, hang on a second, so section 1, provided, however, that funds not exceeding $250,000 will not, hang on a minute. Provided, however, funds exceeding $250,000 shall not be expended prior to final approval from the council. So that gives you $250,000 to spend on excavation and stuff, which you're doing all in-house for the most part. You do the building, RFP or whatever, and you come back. Does that work?
Yes.
Or if you think you're going to be over 250 anytime soon, you just come back.
Is 250
enough, or you want to go
a
higher?
reasonable number?
No, I think that's fine. I think that's
Okay.
enough for architectural services and the excavation that's currently happening there. I think that's fine.
So we have a motion by Councilman Canoyer,
second.
seconded by Councilman Susi and Ward, to amend 22R91. Comments on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Steve.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And 22R91 is amended 6-0. On the main motion as amended, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And 22R91 is approved 6-0 as amended.
22R92, authorizing the city solicitor to sign purchase and sale agreement for property located at 323 Rathman Street, Plat 21, Lot 41, 365 Rathman Street, Plat 21, Lot 109, 35 George Street, Plat 21, Lot 42, and 0 Social Street, Plat 21, Lot 10, Woonsocket, Rhode Island.
Motion approved.
Motion made by Councilman Canoyer, seconded by Councilman Ward. Comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and 22R92 is approved 6-0. Since there's no further business, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Motion made by Councilman Ward. Second? Seconded by Councilwoman Gonzalez. To adjourn this meeting, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and this meeting is adjourned at 10:17 PM. Have a good night, everyone.